the key thing is that we spend us humans spend so much time in our heads, and that's part of our survival kind of mechanism, that fight or flight kind of survival mode, and that doesn't serve us well. When we're like that, we're kind of separate, and in a way we're incomplete. And when we harmonize our big brain in our head with our little brain in our heart, we're kind of much more complete. And so the purpose of doing this exercise of harmonizing the little brain and the heart with the big brain in our heads is that it creates a hotline to our subconscious. And this is where true healing begins. And the scientists found that when we harmonize the heart and the brain, the benefits can last for up to 6 hours. So there are 3 steps to it, and I'll invite you to go through it with me, and I'll be doing it on my end as well, but it's an individual thing. So step number 1 is to shift our awareness. And so I invite you to shift your awareness from your thinking mind to your feeling heart. And so just gently touch your heart center. It could be with an open palm like I'm doing. I've actually got both my hands over my heart space, or it could be with a finger or with 2 fingers in, whatever way is comfortable for you. And the reason that we do this, our awareness always goes to the place on the body where we feel the touch. And this draws our awareness from our busy thinking everyday mind to our heart space. And it sends a signal to our body that I'm turning my attention inwards. So that's step 1, to shift our awareness, to touch our heart space and shift our awareness. And step 2 is to slow our breathing. So I'm going to invite you to breathe in through the nose for a count of 5, hold for a count of 5, and then out through the mouth for a count of 5. And we'll do that 3 times. So with me, so breathe in through the nose for a count of 5. Hold for a count of 5. And then out through the mouth for a count of 5. Still touching our heart space. So in for a count of 5. Hold for 5. Then out through the mouth for 5. And again, in through the nose for a count of 5. And hold for 5. Then out through the mouth for 5. And when we do this, it tells the body that you're in a safe place, because the only time you or we actually breathe like this is when we feel safe. So it's a signal for our body to let go of those survival stress hormones that we operate in so much of the time, and our feelings of stress. It awakens the healing chemistry, because the body can only do one thing at a time. It can be in that fight, flight, survival mode, or it can be in a healing mode. And so this gives the body permission to turn inwards and to be in healing mode. So again, from that place you feel the touch, I invite you to breathe in for a count of 5. And hold for 5. And then out through the mouth for 5. And again, in through the nose for 5. And hold for 5. And then out through the mouth for 5. And that is step 2. Step 1 is to shift our awareness by lightly touching our heart center. Step 2 is to slow our breathing. And step 3 is all about the feeling. And we're the only species on the planet that can do this. And so I invite you to create a feeling in your heart from the place you feel the touch, from the place where you were just breathing from, to the best of your ability, to feel one or a combination of care for anyone or anything, appreciation for anyone or anything in your life, gratitude or compassion. These 4 words, they trigger that connection between the heart and the brain. So to the best of your ability, to feel the feeling of one or a combination of care, appreciation, gratitude, compassion for anyone or anything in your life. From that place, you feel the touch. And just to sit with that feeling, care, appreciation, gratitude, compassion. We'll just take one more slow breath in for a count of 5. Hold for 5. And then out through the mouth for 5. And that's the heart-mind coherence.
Thank you, Steve. You can never have enough of that, can you?
It's a very centering process, isn't it?
Yeah, and it doesn't take long to actually do that.
Mm. And really, what I find extraordinary about it too is how the scientists found that it can, the effects of that, the positive effects of that, can last for up to 6 hours. It's that's an incredible mechanism for us to all tap into and to use. Just fascinating.
Oh, it's wonderful. And, it's like a meditative. It takes you to a place of meditation in your mind and your heart. And so it doesn't take that long. So, 10 minutes putting aside just to do that gives you that burst of energy and centeredness, particularly with, everything that's happening around the world, around where, in our local community, and it's touching everyone, every soul, what's happening right now. So just that 10 minutes aside, every so many hours, just really, truly brings you back to centeredness. Veena, welcome. Lovely to see you here today, Veena.
Hello there, Grace. How are you?
Oh, very well. How are you?
Yes, I'm awesome.
Of course you're awesome.
Looks like we've got a lot of people on today. Fantastic.
Yeah, we've got
clearly Dr. Bill's presence brought you out of the woodwork, Veena.
You know it, Steve. You know it.
How can anyone say no, right?
Absolutely.
So hopefully everyone's ready to bend over for the swab.
Always.
Yep, got yourself waxed and cleansed.
That's no need for that.
Well, we want it as smooth as possible, don't we?
I did promise, or make sure Dr. Bill promised to have his hands warm before he started. So we're all safe.
You're not using the swab, you're using the fingers then, are you, Steve?
Well, whatever Dr. Bill wants, he knows everything. So.
Well, I was going to ask, so for it to last, back to the hum. So for it to last up to 6 hours, you need probably at least 10 minutes then, is that what you're saying?
I haven't seen any research that has a graduating scale. It's just their research found that it can last up to 6 hours. Now, what they're up to probably is determined by the individual, and how we respond to going internal versus the external influences. If you do that, then you go back and scroll through your social media feed and get all worked up again. You're probably not lasting 6 hours, just saying. you know. So I think it's a very individual thing.
It depends on your state too, doesn't it? If you're all over the place, it's going to take you longer. So you take time, take stock, and just be conscious and be aware, God manual, to be able to be in that state. Because when you're caught up in the circumstances, you kind of go in a whirlwind, and to stop that whirlwind, it takes really mental state and heart and emotional to get off that wheel.
Yeah.
So how's everyone else? Is there any particular topic you guys want to discuss?
Very cool.
Anyone?
Sex? How about sex?
Dr. Bill, he's here. He graces us with his presence. Wonderful.
Did he say sex?
He did, of course.
He did, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sex. Anything like that. BDSM. Something really like light.
BDSM.
Please tell us more. I want to know more. Thanks, Dr. Bill. Are you going to cuff everyone before you swab them?
Oh, God.
Your asses all.
What was that you?
Asses are good hands. Not worried.
Resistance is futile, hey?
Yeah, Paul Warren, anything he says, not listen to him.
Oh, he's a hack. Dr. Bill only. Warren is an absolute hack.
Oh, dear. What can we say? Sometimes I'm speechless with Dr. Bill.
Sometimes.
I'm normally not speechless because I talk a lot, but yeah, there's times there's like, holy, what do you do with this? So, Steve, tell us about your holiday. How was it? Did you learn anything?
It was wonderful.
Anything new?
I don't know if anything new, but I had lots of beach walks and getting away from phone and computer and stuff like that, which was much needed. I did have a really interesting experience too. And HB mentioned this on Tuesday night after it had happened, how when there are lots of documented cases of when you have work done on a certain part of your body, it actually releases emotions. And so Judith, just to mention, to answer your question, we went away for, I don't know, about 6 days, I think it was, to Woodgate. And then we had a night at a B&B in a little place called Blackbutt. There's not much in Blackbutt.
Oh no, Blackbutt! Oh dear.
Yeah, it was beautiful. It was a beautiful cabin, surrounded by trees and the waterfall and stuff. It was really nice. But one of the things I did there, Jenny had a few massages and facials, and I had reflexology, which is obviously that massaging of the feet, and it started with a foot soak, and whatever color the water turns with the foot soak, because whatever they put in, and there's a little engine on it and whatnot, determines what part of your body it is responding to that. And the water came out, it was all yellow, and it was like this hideous deep urine color. It was just gross. It really was. And that was all about the joints. So for whatever reason, it was flushing out stuff from the joints. And then the Thai lady did all of the reflexology and stuff like that. It lasted for 80 minutes, and it was, being a guy, I don't really go for pampering all that often. But it was really nice to do that. Then I went for a walk. And what I did, I actually felt this wave of sadness coming over me. These deep emotions, and what it was grief and sadness over my mother's passing coming up, which I hadn't yet processed, and it was quite a surprise. I was probably sad in a deep state of sadness for maybe 6, 8 or more hours that afternoon. It was interesting that HB said on Tuesday night at his session that the number of documented cases, and I'd never directly had or felt that part of the body and then emotions come up really big. And so that was a really interesting and new experience for me. And I guess the overall, my learning from that too was that for once in my life, I sat with the sadness. I didn't try and hurry it. I didn't try and squash it. I didn't try and ignore it. I didn't condemn myself or judge myself for feeling those emotions. I just sat with it, and I was incredibly sad for hours. But just obviously, I was holding emotions in my feet, or whatever part of the feet then relates to the organ in the body that was released through the reflexology. So that was the biggest thing for me, Grace, was that experience. And I think the bigger message, the broader message from that was that I didn't condemn myself. I didn't judge myself. I was okay with feeling the sadness and the emotion, and that's been a difficult thing for me. I think I mean, like you say all the time, Grace, we're pleasure seekers. Who wants to be, cranky and sad? And so I've run from those things all my life. I really have, because they're not very nice. Who wants to look at shit and feel bad? Most people just are born, live their life, and die, and that's it. And we don't want to feel those things. So that was a really important time for me. And the interesting thing too, if we hadn't gone away on that holiday to that place, I would never have had that happen. So obviously, the synchronicity of all those things lining up, it just had to happen. And that, I think have a great deal of gratitude, because I feel I let go more and made peace more with my mother through the sadness of it. So that was my revelation from the holiday and the time away.
It's a wonderful revelation, Steve, because when you look at it, Bruce Lipton talks about it in Spontaneous Evolution in his book. He talks about epigenetics and how memories get stored up in your cells. So that treatment you had with the Thai lady, it's synchronicity of everything that you've done, really. Isn't it? That's why
one of the things that frustrates me in my humanness too, Grace, is that God knows, William knows about clearing energy and stuff like that, his vomiting, and all the work we've done. There's still stuff there. We're all still such a work in progress, and it's almost like the universe bites us on our ass whenever we think we've dealt with something. That's almost a red flag going, you got to go and look a bit deeper there.
Yeah, no one is exempt. No matter if you perceive others are gurus or experts, they still go through their shit. And actually, they go even more, because the more responsibilities you have, the more you're in front of people, the more you're accountable for. And so, I mean, Warren and I certainly say for myself, I'm in a work in progress still. And stuff comes up, still things come up. And that's the beauty about, what we're here about is it's the experience. It's the experience of being human and what we go through, and appreciating, even though it's really hard when you're on the firing line and then you're being caught up in your vortex. So that's why we do a lot of activation and energy clearing and all these things, so that it just stirs it up, stirs the pot, keeps stirring the pot, so that we can continue to work and all emotional. When you look at it, how many, we've got the mental brain, we've got the emotional brain, we've got the physical brain, and we've got legions of egos to deal with. And that's just internal, that's just ourselves. And then say that's me, and then put Steve in the mix with his legions and my legions, and then you got Tanya and so forth. So the multiplication is enormous, isn't it? Because we're all entangled in all these things. So as I say,
Yeah, I think, Grace, one of the things, and I know Warren's mentioned this and you have as well, one of the things that shits me about the love and light movement, where everything's just bright and beautiful, and that's denying the human experience. You know, our human experience is in the beauty and the pain. In the
feel your emotions and let them
yeah.
out. Yeah, it's got to stuff them all down because you've got to be la 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 la.
Yeah, it's complete bullshit, you know, and take it from someone who squashed their emotions down for 45, 50 years. That doesn't work, right? That shit does not work. You know, denying them, ignoring them, shoving them aside, pretending that everything's okay because it's all love and light.
You know what?
That shit doesn't work.
Nothing to see, hey, Steve?
No, I got no problems, right?
Nothing is.
Yeah, I got no problems, right? I'm fine. I'm so clear.
But are you one giant constipation like I was told?
You just got to fart. You got to fart it out, you know?
Yeah, I would do that. Hey, I was like, oh my God, are you serious? I mean, it was funny, but it's not funny.
It really stings. See, that's why people call me witch or bitch or all the itches they call me, because you know, we're not here for love and light. We're not here to seek pleasure. We're here. I'm as nasty and bitchy as well, just depending on how you get me that day. But you know,
but the other thing,
I'm in a work in progress. I make mistakes.
And this is the thing, like if you said, I mean, there was someone last year, I came out and I went, oh, it's quite interesting. I watched her videos initially and went, this is interesting. And then when she started saying, I'm never wrong, I'm like, excuse me, I don't think so. You know, we're all a work in progress. We all make mistakes. So exactly. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm not watching you anymore because clearly, you know, you are not someone I want to be following.
Well, only Bill is never wrong. Dr. Bill is never wrong, right? He's the only one. I guess, and that's one of the other things too. And we do see this all the time in the spirituality movement. There is a lot of ego, and you know, we see spiritual arrogance all the time, like that. I'm never wrong. I know the right way. There's only this way. And it seems more that when people look inwards, they find some answers, and they then want to project those answers out onto everyone else because they've decided to look, and they think that elevates them above everyone else. And it's a really interesting one to look out for and to be aware of, because it's there everywhere.
Well, there's a lot of them that are actually not real, not genuine, and literally just wanting the following and the love and the money and whatever.
I love you too, Jasmine. I mean, Jasmine works closely to me, and she saw another side of me the other week, and she thought I hated her, but it's just she caught me in that mood where I was focused on doing something, and I'm being authentic and true to myself. Now, if I come nasty and being mean, hey Steve, I never mean to you, I know Steve, then then it's your empowerment to say, hey, Grace, back off. You know, you pushed me to my limit, and you know what? I listened to that. It's like, oh, okay, and then let's just talk about it. Let's sit down and see how can we work this together. Because obviously I'm coming from a different perspective to maybe you've got some kind of shadows that you're dealing with, and my form has become whoever it was that you were bitter with, that you had a fight with. So my energy, it reminded you of that. It triggered, you know, it triggers you. And so that's where we come in, and really the art of communication. And if we're going to have that, we all long for intimacy, don't we? We all long for that closeness, to be heart to heart with people. And how do we really come into trust? Because how do we begin to take our protection down and be vulnerable? I guess nobody likes to be vulnerable, but in our vulnerability, there's so much power in it. And we can move more and shift more when we're vulnerable and sensitive. Hey, Christine Evans, how are you today, Mrs. Evans?
I'm good, thanks, Grace. I think your activation or whatever it was last night. Must have lasted till this morning. So yeah, it was good. Yeah. But I just thought I'd go back to what you and Steve were talking about, cellular memory, holding all the stuff in. Because I thought I'd just mention the fact that I've held so much stuff in, and I've had major illness and all the rest of it. And but I share my incidents about the allergy that I've got with my eyes and ryegrass flower. So the other day I felt it coming on, and I did some work with Grace, and what it turns out that it goes back over 50 years to when I was first married, and I was obliged to I was asked to sit on the back. Steve was there too. Sit on the baler, and people don't know what balers are. We live on a farm, and in springtime we cut hay, and you cut it down, and then you rake it up into rows, and then you put your baler over the top of it. And in those days, our baler wasn't all that crash hot, and so I was obliged to sit on the top of the baler and tie the strings as it went through the hay, went through the baler. And it was ryegrass flowering time, and there's all this pollen in the air, and I absolutely detested that job with a passion. And so I was able to, at least other people were able to speak out my frustration. Thank you, Steve. But it was really raw and horrible, and to feel that energy come out again, and it's been there for all these years. That's what shocked me. I'm thinking, how can it be there for such a long time? Now I've got goosebumps talking about it. It's been locked up in my system, in my cells, for all those years. And so every year at this time of year, I can feel the itch coming on my eyes, and my eyes start to swell up. And it used to be so bad that I couldn't even see. I couldn't even go outside. I had to shut the house up so that the pollen didn't come in. Anyway, we worked on it. It was absolutely horrible. I brought out every emotion. Well, Steve brought out every emotion in me that was there, and I could feel it release, and the itch started going out of my eyes. And I haven't had any itchiness in my eyes since Friday.
Wow.
Amazing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So if anyone's feeling that they want to get rid of something, that's it. That's one way that you can do it, but it's not easy, because all those emotions were there, and I could hardly speak it out. And but they came out, and I'm very grateful to all those people who were there, who held space for me and allowed me to feel that feeling without any judgment or anything about all those horrible feelings. And now it's just gone. The feelings are gone, and I'm just amazed that I can walk outside, hang the clothes out and all that stuff. I can't feel any itch in my eyes.
That is wonderful, Christine.
So thank you all for your assistance. When I look back on it, I laugh, but I think I've suffered that for all those years, every year, for 50 years, over 50 years.
Wow, isn't it amazing? And what you did was just use words to unravel and to really get that out, to get it out of your system.
Yeah. And it's amazing how clear that once you get into that spot and you realise that's where it started from, it's amazing how clear I could picture myself sitting there, and I could feel all the feelings, the dust, the dirt, all that anger and everything. Can't feel it now, but I could then. It's like a matter of bringing it to the light, really, I guess.
Such a great
That's beautiful.
The interesting, the interesting thing about that is the humanity of that, right? For however many years you had basically been judging and condemning yourself for feeling those feelings, for feeling your humanity in that moment of being on the baler and so forth. You didn't like it as a it was just something as a human being, and yet you squashed all of that down. You squashed your humanity down for all those years, and being able to speak it out and to live in and accept without judgment those human feelings. And to be blunt with everyone, those feelings were not very nice, and yet they were just you and your humanness, right? And they were locked up there in that humanity, because we deny our humanity so much. Because who thinks that about someone they love? Who says that? All of that conditioning that we've been through all of our lives, it's a horrible blanket that is over us. It really is. So that's fantastic news, Christine.
Thanks for your assistance. It does make a big difference. It does make a big difference. If you're in a situation though where that people are not judging you, and speak it out, and it takes your own judgment off yourself as well.
100%, yeah. Yeah, that's it, isn't it? If outsiders aren't judging us, it makes I guess it makes it then okay for us not to judge ourselves. Whereas if we're not in that safe space, free of judgment, that loop in our head of condemning ourselves goes on.
And gets worse.
Absolutely.
You try and speak up and people, make you feel worse. Then you go, okay, well, I'll stuff it down even further. I'm very, very bad. I will be quiet. Be a good girl.
But the thing is, it starts from you. You really got to make that choice that, so what? Everyone judges me. Fuck them. This is for my journey. They can all fuck off. And so what if they judge me? And that takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of mental state to actually have that attitude that, what, this is all about me. And that's where Warren comes in really well, being a narcissist. And it's a huge benefit being a narcissist, because this is your journey, this is your path, this is your karma, this is your stuff that you got to deal with. And it's up to you to give yourself permission to do that. And have really boldness and the courage to actually do it and put into action.
With back to Christine again. Hang on. Yeah. My ex-husband, I remember him distinctly saying that he started getting hay fever when he was, I think he said he was 19, and he was baling hay as well, or cutting it, or whatever they were doing. And that's really, really interesting. But then the other part was, well, then my son was born with had hay fever. So I'm wondering, is it passed down? So that was interesting.
As a mother, Tanya, you can do something about that.
Oh, he doesn't get it anymore.
Because your child.
Yeah, he doesn't get it anymore. But yeah, I guess there's that belief as well of, I get hay fever, so therefore you'll probably get hay fever, and he probably created that. No, he's fine now. Yeah. But
the fact that you're bringing it out now, the energy's still there.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true, Judith. Those people who judge you, that carry their own stuff inside. Yeah, they're just projecting their stuff onto someone else. And so it's got to stop with you. And, if we can stop, it does take a lot of work in ourselves, knowing ourselves. Gnosti te ipsum, as the Greek philosophers say, is know yourself, and know yourself and love yourself. You love enough. You value yourself that, again, this is your journey, and you're going to do whatever it needs to take to get all this stuff out of you, because that's why we get all dis-ease, don't we? Dis-ease emotionally, mentally, physically, if we don't allow to be truthful, be authentic with ourselves.
And I think, Grace, with that, it takes effort. That's why we fall off the wagon, we don't do it, we run from it, because it does take effort. It takes mental and emotional effort to do it.
Yeah.
And like we said, who wants hard work? I don't. I want to go on holidays and have fun, That's me and my humanness. I'm a chicken.
Grace, can I just make a comment here as well?
Of course you can, Jasmine. I'm going to give you permission.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. Sunday's my cleaning day, and I've just made crepes for all the family, so they're eating that while I had my fruit, because I just broke my fast this morning of 14 days.
Yay.
So, actually, it was a really interesting experience, and I wanted to share it with everyone because what I thought, well, everyone here is talking about, you know, judgment of others, and a lot of people were asking me, oh, you must be feeling so much clarity and spirituality and all that through this 14-day water fast. And I'm thinking, like, not at all. It couldn't be the opposite for me. And that's just being me, like, in my true self. I don't want to try and make it up to be something that it wasn't for me. I did it for my health, and I'm so proud of myself that I made it. But the biggest thing from this is people really like to box people, and they like to put you into a corner, and, you know, they think a certain thing about you. And something that I've had to really accept these last 14 days is that I may not be up to other people's expectations. And at times I'm probably going to let myself down, even with certain expectations. But it's okay, because it's a progress and it's a process. And who cares if I didn't feel all these amazing things throughout the 14-day water fast? I felt great benefits, of course. But life is just there to live, and I don't want to be anything to anybody that they can change their mind in a flick of a second. I just want to be who I am and sit in that, in all of my failures and all of my achievements. And yeah, that's something that I've really learned. And Grace, when you mentioned before, you know, how, you know, I got like a bit like worried. I'm like, oh, maybe Grace is a bit disappointed in me. That's something I have to deal with constantly, because in the workforce I was in our schooling that we get taught to make, you know, someone who's, if you want to look at them higher above you, you know, happy, and make sure that you meet all their needs. But I think if your own needs aren't met, it's really impossible to do that.
Jasmine, I'd just like to say, like, if you've got little kids, I mean, it's almost impossible to go, yeah, I'm in this love and, well, not love and life, you know what I mean? Try and just relax and let all the, you know, whatever's meant to come through, because it's just, I mean, kids are hard work and they're distracting, you know.
They're not even mine. That's the funniest part. They're my godson, my goddaughter. I mean, I love them. This is why I do what I do. They're all in the background there now. But yeah, I just wanted to share that with everybody, because I'm just learning to accept myself for who I am. And it makes me actually a bit emotional, because there's a lot of expectations. We all have these, and I've had it my whole life. But I'm just sitting in who I am, and I don't want to change for anybody. I want to be who I am, who God created me to be. Like, you're an activist, or you're this and that. I actually just rebuke that in my head now, and I go, I'm just Jasmine. Like, you don't know who I am. You just see, you know, your own, what you want to see. So, like, yeah, I'm just sitting in who I am in God, because I believe in him so much with all my heart. And I'm so grateful for every experience and every person, including every one of you that I've met, because this last year and a half, you know, has shaped so many of us for the worse, a lot of people, but I feel for us for the better.
Well, I think Grace summed it up perfectly, Jasmine. Fuck them. You know?
And the fact that you even got through 14 days of fasting, that's amazing.
Yeah, I can't believe I did it. I actually think I'm a full-blown I
mean, I do intermittent fasting, but it's like every day. It's not.
I love you, Jasmine.
I love you guys too. I love you, Grace.
I love you, Jasmine. I'm into, you know, working with me. I'm into peak performance. So I love stretching Jasmine, because she's a basketball. She bounces really well, and she's fantastic to work with.
I'm easy too. Yeah. So thank you just for letting me share.
And that's amazing. Such success. I mean, honestly, the more you think about it, such success to make 14 freaking days with no food. I mean, come on, especially in this day and age, you know, when there's just food everywhere, people munching in front of you everywhere.
Yeah, it was insane. Worth it though.
That's fantastic. Well done.
You. No worries, everyone.
That's really from the heart. Thanks, Jasmine. That's just share anytime, Jazz. She comes from a place of the heart.
Yeah, is there a hint of the trophy child there?
Yeah, I'll take it.
just a little bit, maybe.
That's not, mate. And just conform. Shut up. Your ass is out of it.
What was
funny.
that, Dr. Bill?
I said, just conform, Jasmine. Your ass is ours anyway.
Oh my gosh, the funniest message ever to wake up to. But hey, I'll take you on, Dr. Bill. I'll take you on.
Jasmine, I did write a poem about being the trophy child as well. It's really sad. It's really sad. It really is.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, it's towards the back of the book. Yeah, I can't remember which one it was, but yeah, it's really sad. So if you need to let out the emotions, go and read it.
Yeah, okay. I'm not at the end yet, so I shall give it a go. Thanks for that. I'll give it a few more tears for the day.
Tears is so good, isn't it? Good for the soul.
It definitely is very important. And it's sorry, my niece and my nephew are trying to put sunglasses on my golden
does that mean
retriever.
you give me
Hey?
Does that mean, Jasmine, you give me full permission to bring tears out of you?
Yeah, anytime. I just have to allow it to happen. So can be a bit of a hard bitch, but really I'm a soft bitch.
All right. I look forward to our meeting tomorrow then.
But Grace can be such a bitch.
And make sure you got your crying rag, Jasmine.
I will. I'll bring it on. Yeah, I can't wait.
Oh, well, it's just a reminder. Remember, the seer, the seen, and the seen are one and the same. So you guys cry. You cry, Christine. I cry too.
Well, you must have had lots of tears then in the past times.
I've had lots and lots of tears. I still do. Every now and then I bawl my eyes out like anything. And it's really good. It feels so good.
It does actually make you feel much better afterwards. And even while you're clearing it out as well.
No, I mean, to be honest with you, because I feel so much for people, I literally do that every day. I just got a good mask on of putting the smile on, that everything's okay. But I feel for everyone, and it's wretched what's happening right now. But in that sense, it's all good. It's just bright light. In the darkness, in the midst of darkness, the light is brighter.
Well, that's it. It's hard to recognize light when everything's light, right? When everything's dark, you can really see the light.
Yeah, I guess it's just that's why I love what Jasmine shared. She was just honest. She was really being honest, and she shared with everyone here where she was at. And that's all it takes, is the honesty with yourself first, and then just let it all out. Let your dirty laundry hang out, and it's okay, really okay.
I think too, Grace, in that there's that attachment to an outcome. People saying those things to Jasmine, they were attached to the outcome of, if you do this, this is what should, quote unquote, happen. You should be more spiritual and this and this and this. So we are very much attached to the outcome of something. And so that if she had been attached to a certain outcome, she'd probably be pretty miserable now, because I didn't get what I thought should have happened, because I was attached to what I thought should have happened.
Yeah, it's so true, isn't it?
That's usually the way, isn't it? You're so focused on what should happen, because that's what everyone says, and then you miss everything else around you that did happen because you're so focused on what didn't. I'm not saying that's what Jasmine did, but that's what we generally do.
Oh, Tanya, you're so sweet. I enjoyed putting you on the hot seat Wednesday morning, Tanya.
You were gentle, thank goodness.
That was very gentle, actually.
Yeah, don't be mean. You'll make me
Wasn't it,
cry and run
Christine?
away. That's what I do.
There's many people that have come and gone through our deep work, and they haven't come back because they can't handle it. And that's okay too, because again, it's just where you're at. And if you're okay with that, everyone's okay. But yeah, so we do a lot of deep work. You know, Steve and Christine, for myself, we do it once a week, and we're raw, we're naked, and it takes nakedness to really make it, you know, to make this work. And so not many people can do that, and that's okay too. We don't judge them. It's just what you can handle. So yeah, so over the last couple of years, isn't it? A lot of people come going. They come once or twice and never come back, because it's just the nerves really get touched.
I think too, it's the seasons. There's that cyclical thing as well. Nature has seasons. People's lives have seasons. They come and find a part of what they were looking for, and then that season of looking within for them is gone, and they'll come back later on, or they'll go and find something else.
Yeah, well, it was a season for me to clean my kitchen bench this morning.
Yay.
I can see my kitchen bench.
You clean your kitchen, and then you turn around and you're like, what the hell just happened? What's the point? All that effort of cleaning the bench, like, man, I spent such a long time. It looks so good for like 5 minutes.
Yes, when my boys were younger, you clean it up, 5 minutes later, it was the same as it was before.
The funniest thing for me is that it's just my son and I. So I'm like, man, who made this mess? Must have been the cats, because clearly it wasn't me. It's not him usually, so.
Well, we actually have an extra person in our house, and their name is Nobody.
Yeah, it's always no one that does it, isn't it?
Yeah, and another one too, actually. Nobody and Somebody did it.
Yeah.
So those two.
And it's usually not until they grow up that you finally hear who did all this stuff that you're like, hang on a minute. Is that what really happened?
Well, I must admit, since they're here, James and Edward are excellent. They're going to be such a wonderful husband one day, because they know how to cook, they're clean, they're very neat children. And yeah, I just want to share with everyone here, they're actually really great cooks. So, for those who have teenage daughters, introduce them to Edward and James, because I think they have huge potential, being good catch, looking after your daughter. Oh, James and Edward are 17. They'll be 18 in January.
Ed's leaving. He's horrified by that little narrative.
I was going to say it too, Judith. Like, yeah, a bit young for me, unfortunately.
He's okay with cougars.
Age doesn't matter, does it? Age doesn't matter.
Speaketh the cougar.
You're sharing my secret, Steve.
How many years old is the person you're feeling, Steve?
Yeah, apparently.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe my hormones are going crazy. I'm looking at 30-year-old men, and I'm thinking, in the gym particularly, it's really bad in the gym. And I'm like, I'm trying to stop ogling at them and looking at them.
But you're not dead. I mean, until you're dead, it's okay to look. Maybe not just drool and stuff. Try not to drool and,
Exactly. See, I'm pretending I'm actually sweating, It's not drooling, it's sweating, and it's going all over my face.
Maybe wearing sunnies in there. Start a new trend is like wearing sunnies so you can just perk without anyone knowing. say it's the lights that bother you.
I think you're good, Tanya. You're clearly an old perv from way back. Look at all your strategies already, right?
I've been single a long time. But I can still look. I appreciate it.
But isn't it a stigma? I mean, I must confess that I'm one. The stigma of you know, a cougar is bad, and it's acceptable for men to have younger women.
I know, right?
Where
And I mean,
women,
they're the ones that die before us, so we should have the younger men anyway. So, you know,
exactly.
we're 70, have a nice 50-year-old at 70.
Yeah,
Do you remember
exactly.
Joan Collins? Didn't she marry a guy that was like 40 years younger or something?
Who?
Joan Collins. Remember her?
Oh, yes.
Last time, I mean, this was many years ago. I saw something. I think he was like 38 years younger or something like. Ooh, but yeah, probably the fact she had money had something to do with it.
Well, look at Madonna. Madonna has, you know, she has the younger ones, but you know, again, that's something that I had to work through personally for myself. You know, looking at younger. I actually had a reading a few years ago about 10 years ago. I had a reading with this man, and he said to me that, Grace, you've got to accept, you know, men from 30 years upwards. He might come and turn up your life, and you got to accept it. And I'm like, back then I said, no way. Anyone that was young, even a year younger than me, I couldn't handle. So
it just shows that we're all capable of change, Grace, right? There you go.
Exactly. We can transform, right, Steve? Oh, Chris, you have 3 beautiful girls, do you? Oh, send the photos over, Chris. Let's. I'll show you James and Ed and William. My youngest is 16.
Can you please stop? And this will be the last Sunday Ed attends. You watch. He won't come back ever again.
My youngest is 16, and I don't think he's interested in girls. So even if he is, he's not saying anything. So
Well, that's okay. We don't care what he's into. That's fine. We'll love him anyway. You just said you don't think he's into girls, poor guy. He's like, Mom, no.
Oh, yeah. So, look, I like to, you know, potential. There's nothing like embarrassing my boys, going to cafes, restaurants, and, you know, to check out the girl at the, you know, checkouts, and I'd ask them that if they're single, and, you know, would you consider check out my sons? Aren't they gorgeous?
I think you're too focused on all of us rather than finding yourself a man, which we all know you're desperate for. Steve can confirm that.
Yeah, well said, Ed.
I'm desperate for a man. All right.
I've got a cactus behind me, and all she can see is you know what she would see with that walking erection.
Yeah, you need to turn your screen on, Ed, just so everyone can see.
Yeah, go on, Edward. Show us the cactus.
Has it got soft spines or hard ones?
That one over there, she loves that.
Look at that cactus. Isn't that ridiculous? It just does not suit the ambience of the office, Edward.
No, the only thing you can see though is a very delicate part.
I can't see. I've got an arrow in the way. Oh, he's gone again anyway.
Look, you know what? I own the fact that I'm desperate for a man. I own it, Edward.
Yeah, you don't hide it.
Let it all out. But then again, I don't do anything to get a man, so I'm too busy working. But isn't it funny, you know, those who are single wants the partner, and those who are in partnership want to get out of it, kind of thing, or having challenges and issues in their relationships. So it's just one of those things. It's like the grass is green on the other side.
Well, I heard a good I had a good retort to that. You know, everyone says the grass is always greener on the other side, but everyone forgets even green grass needs to be mowed.
Would you like to see some green grass?
Oh, yes, please, Suzanne. Are you in the garden?
No,
Yeah.
I'm down the paddock fencing.
Oh, let's have a look.
So I'll just give you a quick tiki tour.
Oh, wow.
Where are you?
In Taroom in central Queensland.
Oh, wow.
I was going to say, you don't see
But
green grass very often in Perth.
We don't see green grass very
Yeah.
often here. But
Ah.
I'm actually fencing right beside a dam, which I can remember well over, whoops, here comes the wind, well over 60 years ago. I remember coming down to this dam when there were just trees everywhere and they had bulldozers in to clear it all. And they used to go water skiing on that dam by having water skis and a rope attached to a utility on the other side. And the utility would drive off as fast as it could and they'd ski across the dam.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, so there's some green grass. There's the fence
Nice.
I'm trying to fix. So I'll let you guys get back to your fun because I've got to get back to fencing. It's getting a bit hot out here.
Good on you, Suzanne. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
They have had a nice lot of rain there. That's good.
Yes, we did. We've had about 60 mils in the last 2 weeks, and that's got us out of a real pickle.
Yeah.
So we're happy now because we've got water and we've got grass. And we haven't had that for maybe 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful there, Suzanne.
It is, yes. It's a property. I was actually born in the little town near here, and I promised myself I would never come back to live in this area because I didn't like it. Well, 9 years ago, when my husband died in New Zealand, I had to go somewhere, so I came back to the property with big intentions of doing all sorts of things, and here I still am. But it's a beautiful place to be. It's way away from everything that goes on in this world. And unless somebody actually rings me and tells me what's going on, I have no idea at all.
Oh, sounds fantastic.
It is. It's beautiful. And you're talking about gratitude. I wake up in gratitude every day for what I actually chose to do.
Oh, that's beautiful. What do you actually do in the land, Suzanne?
I actually came back to be with my father and get to know him again. And
beautiful.
He died about 5 years ago. So we had a big family estate ruckus to get through, and one of my sisters inherited the property. And so I just stay on here because it was my home for a few years, and I'm just basically caretaker manager for the time being until whenever this world sorts itself out and we can do something else.
I'm sure you got the ride-on lawnmower, right? Imagine mowing that lawn manually.
Yeah, sure. I've actually got I think there's about 150 cows here that ride on the lawn every day and eat the grass, so that's cool.
This is me, the city slicker, speaking.
Yeah, no, it's good to have grass and it's good to have long grass.
That's gorgeous. And it's nice flat too, it's a flat land.
Well, it's undulating.
Rather than hilly.
Over behind the dam there's what they call the Lind Range. And it's not very high, but it actually, we're not flat like the Darling Downs or the deserts, which is great. And we've actually got hills, and you can see it rising up a little bit there, just the other side of the truck. Goes up. The house is up behind those brigalow trees there in front. You just go further up the fence and the house is up that way. So we are up on a top of a hill to look out, and that's just
Looks
beautiful.
like a great land.
It is.
It looks
is.
like, I feel, Suzanne, it looks like a great place to work energetically. You can open up all sorts of portals in there.
Yes, there are actually, and that's one of the reasons why I'm here. I'm holding a light.
Yeah.
Yeah, your soul led you there, I think.
Yes. Oh, my soul knew exactly what it wanted to do.
Yep.
It override anything that I tried to tell it.
Oh, it's beautiful. Power to you, Suzanne.
Well, thank you, and thank you everybody for listening and enjoying. It's a beautiful land. We're the ones that need to create the magic.
Absolutely. Totally. We are the magic, aren't we?
We are, and we need to bring it back.
So talk about magic. Dr. Bill, are you ready?
No, I need it 2 minutes.
Of course.
Well, have you got your condom?
The lube,
Finger
just
on?
lube.
You got condoms on your fingers?
Just lube.
Wrapped it from the Cairo? Oh, you can get the condom for your fingers from the Cairo. It's pretty interesting looking.
Just lube up, Dr. Bill. It's interesting for me to make an interesting comment about green grass. Green grass needs to be watered as well and nourished as well as mowed. So yeah, it might be greener, but it doesn't come without work. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Very true. And actually, it's God's way of watering the land is actually putting clouds over it that drop the moisture out of there. Liquid gold.
Oh, I like that. Liquid gold.
Very precious.
All right. Speaking of golden liquid gold, Warren said he'd be ready in a few minutes. So while he's getting ready, shall we do a bit of a scrambling of the energy, clear things out?
That's a good idea. Yep.
All right, I've got my pendulum.
Me too. I got mine.
All right, let's do it.
All right.
And I'll provide the portals from de Havilland to help you with the energies.
Oh, yes, please, Suzanne. Yes, please, Suzanne. Call in the pyramid through the portal as well.
Yeah, definitely. There's a white pyramid has actually come down and it's resting over the dam over the property now.
All right. Scrambling the energy in each and every one here. Increasing the frequency and vibration. Increasing our Merkaba. Aligning all our chakras. Drawing on the golden liquid realms and alchemical powers. Drawing on the Christ consciousness. Bringing balance in all our chakras too. All powers and dominions under our submission. Awakening of the Elohim within. Taking us from Malkut to Kita. Drawing the alchemy of fire and water. Spiraling, spinning it through our spine, reaching our pineal gland, rewiring our mind. Clearing our auric field, clearing out the morphic field through time and through space. through the multiverse, parallel universe, in each one of us here. Unleashing our full potential. Unlocking, clearing all blockages. Sending electrical currents through our neuro pathways. Igniting, sparkling the fire within. We are all ministers of fire. Let us all burn up. Inviting Holy Spirit, Mother Mary, and all the archangels, the seraphims, the cherubims, to surround us with great walls of fire. Transmuting, cleansing, revitalizing through the sexual energy.
There's a lot of energy there. Gosh.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, pendulum's really spinning hard.
Mm. Clearing all 7 areas of our life. I ask this all in the name of Christ. Thank you. Amen. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Hallelujah. And in deep gratitude from our hearts. All right. Thank you, everyone. Dr. Bill, over to you.
Oh, hallelujah. We are all saved.
Can you see me? Can you hear me? Oh,
Dr. Bill, thank God you're here.
I am. Just hold on. I've got one more thing to get for you, my precious sheep.
You steam, Dr. Bill.
Swab. I have my Bobber Adel swab ready for you.
Oh, Steve, you're not wearing your white shirt, Steve. Matching.
No, I'm not today. No.
Everyone, please bend over. Yes, I arrived bang on 11:11, Sharon says. So bend over. Your asses are mine.
Lowering my trousers as we speak, Dr. Bill. Only for you.
On my Dr. Bill Facebook group, my favourite comment was I wrote this thing about anal swabs, and then William posted on there. He goes, "Are you ready to take my anal virginity, Dr. Bill?" And Travis wrote, "This is just so wrong in every sense."
Yeah. Of course, it was.
Well, yeah, I wasn't going to give my anal virginity to anyone else.
No.
Dr. Bill's the only one.
Oh no! I'm very honoured. I shall treat all of your asses very well, everyone.
Yeah,
So,
you know how to treat our asses really well. That's why I gave it up for you.
Just be gentle, Dr. Bill. Be gentle. Take it slow.
I will be, of course. Yes. I'll treat my flock well.
Yes, give it some foreplay. Treat it well.
Oh dear, this is going backwards fast. Anyway, so we'll get started. Before we do, I'm just going to do a quick finishing off with the clearing. This is a really good integration I've done. So just what you will see is the different colors of the 7 chakras there. And just notice which color jumps out at you the most. And just type in the chat which one of the 7 chakras. So obviously right along here, you can see the different chakra colors. Like the first is the bottom one, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh. So just notice what comes up for you. And what I want to do is just allow my bobber to move. Yeah, so yellow for M, that means power, M. That means you need some kind of scrambling or power things. Or Chris, dark blue, that's the third eye. Sharon is blue, which is the throat. Red for me, that's your base chakra. That's around fear, security. Marika, indigo. Yep, that's your third eye. That's overthinking your mind. Orange, Christine, that's your sacral, sexual, creative. Yep, okay. So what I'm doing is just allow and just feel that color infusing into that relevant chakra, and then also spreading through and balancing out your chakras. You'll generally find that one color jumps out mainly, and then a second color will also just be there as well. Yeah, so blue, orange, and purple. Yeah, so the one that jumps out at you a lot will be the one that really needs balancing. The secondary one is the one that needs calming. So one of them needs activation, one needs calming. So, okay, so just what I'm doing is just allowing it to go and just do the work. So those who need the scrambling, it's scrambling you. And those who need activation, so what happens is one of them will be opening more, one of them will be scrambling more and, you know, calming down. Okay, that should be there. That should be feeling a little bit better already. And just get a feeling of the red basically going right up your central vertical channel from under the earth, up your perineum, right up your center, right up through your forehead, your crown, right up basically to the heavens. Then the orange, then the yellow, then the green, then the blue, then the indigo, then the purple, then the gold, and then silver. So you've got 9 colors. If you can't see it, some of you will see it. Those who can't, just feel it and know it that it's happening. And what it's doing is I'm activating and switching on each of your chakras a little bit more. So the one at the front, there's always 2 wheels that your chakra is spinning around clockwise at the speed of light, the other spinning anti-clockwise to speed up your energy field. Okay. So you should be noticing a little bit more balance after that. So just if anyone's noticed an immediate shift or balancing, then just type a Y. Or just type what you've experienced or whatever else. And then we're starting. Yep, so Judith felt something. Anyone else feeling anything? Penny's more centered. Famita more balanced and calm. Alex more alert and focused. Okay, awesome. Can we a chart? Yeah, no, that's just a chart which I bought. I just bought it when I was in Sedona, Chris. I haven't really seen it anywhere since, but that's where I bought it. It's probably somewhere. I found it in this crystal new age shop in Sedona in the middle of nowhere. So okay, Miko's feeling calmer. Excellent. Okay, so on that note, let's get started. And today, the Esoteric Wisdom of Christ. Dr. Bill Adel swabs and how to protect your precious little virgin ass from our friend Dr. Bill. I'm sure you all like the photos. The one on the left, we can thank Sam Buckley for helping me design this one. So here we go. So who would like to say the Lord's Prayer after seeing that image? Christine, William, Steve, who would like to say the Lord's Prayer, the prayer of Yeshua to start off?
I'm happy to if no one else wants to.
Awesome, thanks, Steve.
All right, the prayer to our Father. O thou from whom the breath of life comes, who fills all realms of sound, light, and vibration. May your light be experienced in my utmost holiest. Your heavenly domain approaches. Let your will come true in the universe, all that vibrates, just as on earth, that is material and dense. Give us wisdom, understanding, assistance for our daily need. Detach the fetters of faults that bind us, our karma, like we let go of the guilt of others. Let us not be lost in superficial things, materialism, common temptations, but let us be freed from that, what keeps us off our true purpose. From you comes the all-working will, the lively strength to act, the song that beautifies and renews itself from age to age. Sealed in trust, faith, and truth, I confirm with my entire being.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, so the day's word to start off with. I always like to start with the words that I got when I tuned in was this. From the days of John the Baptist until now, Christ told his disciples, the kingdom of heaven has suffered violence, and the violent take it by force. And it's interesting that this was those who've been doing my Jesus the Badass course over the weekends have learned that Jesus was not some love and light guy who walked down in a robe smiling at people. He was actually quite a badass. He was very blunt, a revolutionary who took on the darkness of his day. And really what he's saying to his disciples here is you're not here to basically compromise and play games with the dark and in the realms of a prison planet where basically you've got the darkness of Satan and lower energies tampering with what's going on. So very much what he's saying, what he was saying here. So kingdom of heaven suffers violence and the violent take it by force. And as he said, it demands a very particular kind of response and a very certain type of response. And Jesus is going to make war on everything that hinders love with his eyes blazing fire. In other words, we're not meant to be love and light. There's one thing to be love and light, which means let the light shine, let the precious ointment of God shine through your hearts. But as great revolutionaries like Yeshua taught, like Martin Luther King, people like these, like Gandhi, these guys were not just love and light people. They were people who had great force, great power of words, great force of energy, authority in what they did to speak out and do what was right in the midst of very wrong situations to the point of their life. And it's fair to say that Dr. Bill is coming for your ass right now. And we're seeing this in society today, you know, that people's rights are being violated to the point of such absurdity that what you're seeing here is not far off the truth. And right now in Wuhan, China, this is what happens. This is it. So it's an appalling image, yes, but this happens in Wuhan, China now. But this is how people are tested for COVID. So is it feasible this could come to Australia? I think it's fair to say that if the Chief Health Officer came out in Australia or in America and convinced everyone that this was more accurate and would save you from a deadly virus, I think asses would be bending over all over the countries. So this is the ridiculousness of what we're living in right now. Like we are living in a real life war. And if you don't empower yourself, someone is going to take power over you. You know, that's just the reality of the world we live in, you know. And this is a principle of Dr. John D. Martini, that you become a sheep, that you literally will be actually giving up your power if you don't take power. So D. Martini, in fact, says you should be planning in your life for literally, he said it's very important that you take power in all areas of your life, because if you don't take power in your life, he said somebody else will do it for you. And this, and in fact, the disempowerment of our society has been so absolutely severe that it's fair to say now that, you know, we're living, that this is what's happened now. People have completely just given up their power, have given up just about any single rights or, you know, remote frequencies or anything of that kind, which they actually believe in. So people are giving up their power and their freedom so easily. And I predicted this. And in a way, I wish I'd been wrong. I predicted that people would just give up their rights as soon as they got coerced, and it was going to cost them something like, and it would be different for different people, whether it was traveling, you know, the more weaker would be traveling, whether it would be something else, whether it would be, you know, something else, whether it would be a, whether it would be like being able to travel around, go to your favorite cafes, go to your strip clubs, go to a restaurant, work, whatever else. And generally, the more you give up your power, and those who've been in abusive relationships or domestic violence know that agreeing to the demands of an abuser or anyone who's been subject to any kind of blackmail doesn't solve the problem. It just temporarily eases the pain for a short time until they come back at you next time a little bit harder than before. In other words, once people realize that you're a pushover, they won't just generally back off. They'll generally come in and take advantage of you. And as I told someone, you know, someone was willing to do anything I asked them and clean my house and do anything without complaint. Would I let them do it? Yeah, why not? I mean, it'd be awesome. So people, if you don't empower yourself, somebody else will take power over you. And this is what really this is about today. And there's ways about empowering yourself. I mean, we're living right now in a Borat movie, you know, in a living mankini. And the fact is that this is the kind of absurdity of the world we're living in. We're living in a real life Borat movie. And it's because, in a way, the higher councils are saying to people, you know, that, look, hey, everyone, you're so disempowered and so stupid. We're going to kind of make a mockery out of you until you get the message. That's, in a way, how I feel and see what's going on in the world around us. We become lazy through prosperity. And as I told someone yesterday, Australia and US and everything has been very easily taken over and have been ripe for it for some time. So Grace is going, oh my gosh, yeah. It's meant to be like a bit of a shock. And the fact is, I'm sure you would agree that Dr. Bill's anal swabs would hurt a little bit, you know. There was an article over in China that actually talked about all this, but yes, about the whole thing. And yes, do they hurt? Yes, they actually do hurt, the anal swabs. And there's actually was an article all about this that actually came out in Forbes magazine quite some time ago with the whole thing. And back sometime early on this year, on the 1st of February, there was this article in the US Sun. And what the article said was that China was forced to tell citizens that they won't end up waddling like penguins from COVID anal tests after the video goes viral. So it says China has been forced to tell worried citizens that they won't waddle like penguins after getting COVID tests with an anal swab. This came after a video showing people walking stiff-legged like the flightless birds, and US diplomats actually complained about it. So there was a huge complaint because they all were saying that afterwards they were waddling like penguins for a couple of days. So the Chinese censors quickly got rid of it because they didn't want people to think they were turned into penguins. Now, this is actually a real thing that happened in February. But as it says here, but the anal swab method can increase the detection rate of affected people as the trace of the virus lingers longer in the anus than in the respiratory tract. Li Tongzheng, a senior doctor, told the CCTV. So this is the kind of stuff that's going on in the world when you have a very disempowered people, you know. So someone's taking the piss out of people. I'm convinced of that, absolutely taking the piss out of people. And one of my friends, Shaquille Latimer, said, look, if you controlled the world and people were stupid, why would you not do stuff like this? That was his comment to me. So what does this mean for us, really? It means that getting empowered and getting back to doing the kind of work and the shifts, and in a way being willing to pay the price that we have to pay to do our work and do what's right by ourselves. And in fact, it's easier to do things when things are hard. In other words, the wise individual will do things when it's easy rather than it's hard. Like the easiest time to end an abusive relationship is the first time it happens. And anyone who's been in it would be nodding their head. The easiest time to end an abusive relationship is the first time it happens. The first time you get hit. The first time someone steps way out of line, like does something that you didn't see coming. You know, it's one thing for someone to kind of lose their shit and get really upset at you briefly, and then you talk it out and set some boundaries. That's just normal. But someone then yells at you, you know, calls you as a guy, for example, oh, you just got a small dick, mate. You know, you couldn't get up if you tried. You're pathetic. Or a guy says to a girl something really degrading to her and then gives her a whack across the head. Says that's the kind of thing you'll be getting if you keep this up. You know, the best time would be just to walk away from that straight away. Like, okay, you crossed the line. I'm sorry. And because you all know that if it happens once, it will happen again. And so Tasha says degradation will get worse and they continue to line up for it. And that's the thing, when you compromise with evil and when you make a slight 1% allowance, evil doesn't go, oh, okay, no problem. I will do a fair thing. Okay, that's fine. You know, if you do this for me, I will back off. No, they will come back. You know, I remember about 6 years ago, someone tried to blackmail me online when I was actually, something happened. I did a particular thing without thinking. Next minute, I had some of my details and private stuff on my computer. And they told me, don't even try and block me because I will spread this to everyone. Now, I just instantly, I didn't give myself any time to think about it. I instantly blocked them. And I instantly got my bobber out and started to do clearing. And I messaged Raymond Grace. We tuned in and we bound up with spirits behind this person. And I got on with life. Because I thought the moment I give into this blackmail, I'm fucked, you know. It'll always be in my mind. The fear will always be lingering, the fear of being caught. So I just immediately owned it and thought, you know what, that was a silly thing I did, so be it. You know, if it comes out, it doesn't really matter anyway. It doesn't particularly bother me. I'll just laugh it off and I'll pull out my lawyer's sword and make light of it. Not a big issue. So today is really about learning to stand up to Dr. Bill. And like I said, Dr. Bill doesn't particularly like me for giving this message to you today. And no doubt he, you know, was begging me earlier on before. But yeah, you know, he back when Grace was first talking, I heard rumors he was saying some pretty nasty things about me. But like I said, just ignore him. I'm here to help protect you from his wrath, from him trying to get in your wrath. So degradation will continue, like I said, to get worse. And it's something that abusers don't suddenly change their mind and become kind. One of the things I've learned is leopards don't change their spots. They don't. You get the very rare road of Damascus experience that happens. Very rarely you have something like what happened to the Apostle Paul. Paul was a guy in the Bible who just literally one day, he was off to kill a whole of the Christians. He was breathing fire and he had a direct encounter with Christ on the road to Damascus and changed his life. And he was a different man, but that's more the exception than the rule. Most of us live our life assuming that people will all have a road to Damascus experience, and the reality is they don't. Generally, I found if a girl is high maintenance, she'll always be high maintenance. And I'm sure girls, you've found that if a guy is hard work, he will stay being hard work. You can train him a little bit, he can maybe ease up a little bit, get a little bit better than he was before, but by and large, he'll be hard work, or he'll be who he really says he is. They've actually proven that once someone passes the age of 24, generally who they are from that point onwards, by and large, stays the same. And yes, you can do some fairly major, you can change, you can transform. If you're really, really committed to self-development, you can make some big shifts. But by and large, who you are at 24, in 99% of people, that's who they will stay. Then you'll get the 1% of people who will make some fairly significant shifts, and then you will have the 0.01% who will make life transforming and become a whole new person. So generally, when you see certain things going on in society, you see certain things happening. So rest assured, for example, if you go right now and take a jab because you've been coerced when you don't want to, who thinks the government will suddenly say, that's fine, you've been good, we'll never give you another one? Does anybody here, just type a Y if you think that the government will do that from this point on, that they're happy that you've done your part, taken your jab, and you're going to be left alone now. Anyone think that for a minute? Emily, no. So yeah, Emily, I'm sure that if you go and take the jab, you know, your employer will go, great, you know, wonderful, thank you for doing that. And the government will write you a personal letter of thanks. You'll get a telegram from the Queen of England, and you'll get a personal letter of thank you from Daniel Andrews. If that happens, I'm sure you would agree, you and I can fly up into space, and we can meet up there next week, and then we can ride on a pig, and we can shoot arrows at angels. So there you go. In other words, the odds of that happening are not particularly high, I think it's fair to say. So the idea is either this: either we submit to abusive relationships and go, that's okay, look, we're happy to be the bitch of our partner, you know, and the reality is most of us have done this. Most of us have been in toxic relationships of some sort, whether it's with that friend on social media, whether it's with that boyfriend who treated you horrendously, but you stayed with him because you had the connection was so good, or whether it's because that girl who you were seeing, but you're afraid to leave them because of what people would think of you, or you're afraid of losing that intimacy and being all alone and being empty, or afraid of what she'd say to you, or just basically being afraid that you'd never get anyone else again. Most of us have done that, okay? So therefore, it's not a big stretch when the government turns up and says, turn up, give us your ass, take your jabs, do whatever the fuck you want, just do what we tell you and we'll leave you alone. We go, okay, yeah, we'll do that, you know, and hopefully they'll treat us better for a little while. In other words, most people want to do what's easy now rather than do what's hard now. They'd rather do what's easy now and put off the inevitable pain for a little bit longer rather than do the hard thing now and kind of get it and then deal with it. Who would agree? Like if you, who would admit that if you've got two trays, one that's got a really hard task and one that's got an easy task, you'll want to do the easy task. Your instinct will be just to do the easy task and ignore the hard task for a while. Yep, Jasmine says for a while. So yep. Yep, so Jasmine, yep. Yep, so Tanya ignore for both for a while. Melanie definitely. Yep, so it's good. Everyone's being honest here. Christine, Derek, everyone's being honest, which is good. So we got to kind of accept some difficult. Yes, Sharon, the easy path crucified me. Steve, the comfort. That's why I like reading Relentless by Tim Grover, who trained Michael Jordan, about doing the hard things first. Like only the cleaner will do that. Will do the hard things first. That's why I've made that a habit in my life to do the hard things first. I've had to train myself out of being a lazy pussy because naturally there's that lazy pussy in me, you know? So I have trained myself out of that. Right now I have an insane amount of things to focus on, like an insane amount of stuff. And I just go, you know what? I never complain. I always ask, how can I do this better? And this is what Yeshua said when Jesus was going to the cross to be crucified. And when they were all crying because of the pain, he said, don't weep for me, but for yourselves. For he said, for if they do these things in the green tree, what shall be done in a dry? In other words, if they're doing these things now when things are really pretty bad, but not terrible, how bad is this going to get? And that's what I would say today. How bad is this going to get? And the answer is, as Stephen Pettit and I talked about, when people are complying so easily, you can only imagine how much worse this is going to get over the next few years. And that's not being negative. It's just, unfortunately, being factual. And we, however, can see this as a time of opportunity and come through this if we just accept and we look at where we're at with this and say, we don't want to be Dr. Bill's bitches. Now, we will be Dr. Bill's bitches, though, if we give up our power and continue to be coerced like we are, without learning to get that inner strength to push back. You know, we just won't. You know, things aren't going to magically fix up overnight, you know, they just won't, you know. That's the unfortunate things. Things are not going to fix overnight. So, yeah, so Jasmine, I'll do anything. I mean, I'm fortunate. I was bullied so much as a kid, and I was so horrendous in terms of being a wimp when I was younger. I made a bit of a promise to myself I wouldn't be coerced again, no matter what the cost, when I hit around my 20s and 30s. And so in situations where even I probably should have just made some allowances, I refused to, and just on pure principle. So Jasmine, yeah, having my ass, that's for sure. Yeah, well, my ass is still a virgin, and, you know, I plan to keep it that way a little bit longer. You know, I haven't met the right kind of special guy yet who I'll give it to. So, okay, so anyway, revision. So what were we talking about previously? Everything is energy that can be transformed. And I use dark humor for a reason. Dark humor is one of the fastest way to enjoy life and actually to, in a way, collapse the energies of what's going on, so we don't get so caught up that we get afraid, you know? It's that. So everything is energy and it can be transformed. And And what I talked about over the last couple of months when I've been speaking is the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven and what Yeshua taught. So this is the Sermon of the Mount. Like, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they which hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are they who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when men shall revile you and persecute you and say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven. For so did they persecute the prophets that were before you. And you may remember that we shared all that kind of stuff just previously. And we went right into that stuff. We went into this thing, and I'll just do a quick refresher very shortly on what we did back previously on that, because there's some very powerful principles in that one, so to speak. So you are the salt of the earth. And this is what we're going to be taking on today. But if the salt has lost its savour, where shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing but to be cast out and trodden under the foot of men. You are the light of the world. A city that is hid upon a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it gives light to all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. Okay, so let's get into this. So, strange, I've got two of these. Okay, anyway. So the light of the world, I'm sure you would all agree, fabulous, fabulous one. And so the poor in spirit. So we talked about that and what we're talking about. Blessed are those who really are humble in spirit. I know one of the things I struggled with as a follower of Christ was that kind of confidence issue, but then not being seen as arrogant. And I remember hearing a guy called Pastor Jeff Woodward saying that true humility is boldness before man, but brokenness before God. And I remember thinking, wow, that's so true. Like, I said to Edward today, for example, about these freedom rallies I had in WA yesterday. I mean, I watched a bit of it, and I said to him, honestly, I said, the speakers are by and large idiots. I said, I'm going to tell Jasmine and Travis, I said, you tell them and spread the word around. You put me in charge of those rallies, and those rallies will work. And I've no doubt about it. And that's not an arrogant thing. I just know it. And in my own heart, I know that it doesn't matter what happens. And I know that ultimately most things I'm not particularly good at, but sorting shit like that out, I'm quite good at. I was put in charge of the Perth Awake Facebook business group. And that's now, which was kind of getting shut down and all over the place. And it's more orderly. It's just because there's a couple of things I can do well. I mean, there's about 99 things I'm absolutely hopeless at. And a couple of things that I'm good at is kind of sorting out difficult problems. I enjoy doing it. So the poor in spirit doesn't mean that you become this walking around like dressed in rags. Quite the opposite. The poor in spirit, like Christ, has boldness. They know that they're actually the child of God. They know that makes them magnificent. That makes them a superstar. It also makes them know, however, that in comparison to God and the greatness of God and the greatness of humanity in terms of the children of God and the whole representative collective body of Christ, that really we're just a tiny part in a whole big ocean. But our tiny part can still make a monumental difference. And the mourners are those who their mourning is that constant grief and hunger for God. That's that hunger for that connection with Source, that connection with the Divine Mother, the Divine Feminine. The meek inherit the earth. In other words, those who are basically take the lowliest place in service to make a difference. Doing nothing and it will be done for you, as my youngest son knows all too well and seems to live it. The little bugger got himself exempted from school the other day. Everyone else was laughing, thinking he got in so much trouble for doing nothing as a homeschool. And when he got looked into, they decided to exempt him. So I think, gosh, if only he could pull that one off. So, yeah, Jasmine, can you go into that a little bit more? Yeah, look, basically, this is not saying that you sit there and stare at the beach, although my youngest son would hasten to differ. It just means that there's a difference between taking action from heart-centeredness and what you enjoy doing and following your values, and doing things or trying because you think that trying something will make it happen. The best example, I think, is that I can remember whenever I was on the path actively hunting to find myself a soulmate or girl or whatever else, it always seemed to flee away from me. So as soon as I'd start pushing for it, it would seem to push it back for me. When I would let go and throw my hands up, and I can remember, once doing all the right things with this particular girl. I was taking her out, I was talking to her, and then she just kind of turned around and said to me, this is years ago, oh, we have a great connection. I just enjoyed a friendship. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I remember the next time I so couldn't be bothered. I just said, next girl, look, I don't want anything too serious. I just want to have really good sex and just have some fun. That's it. And I kind of thought they would say, yeah, whatever. And they go, yeah, I'm open to talking about it. And before I knew it, I was getting that. I'm like, oh. So do nothing and it will be done for you. It's that whole thing where you realize as a Tao master that the more you let go, it just happens. I've tried for years to market and grow a really big webinar following. And I got a little bit of traction, but it was hard work and I exhausted myself. Eventually I gave up and thought, oh, I'm just sick of trying to bring webinars and turn it into a profitable business. I just want to teach people about Christ and common law and sovereignty. And about 5 months ago, I just started, I had profitable other businesses, but I just started doing lots of free webinars to give back because I really felt for people. And I wasn't even thinking about anything else. And suddenly, before we know it, our work has like exploded. We've got lots of people coming to all of our webinars now. And I didn't really do anything. If you ask me, how did I do it? I went against all my marketing people's advice and just did what I felt like doing. And my youngest son's a really good example of that, Jasmine. If you look at Josiah, he just literally just turns up. He's a gamer. He just literally, the only time he ever turns up in my life is when he knows I'm going to feed him or play a game of sport with him. Otherwise, he doesn't give a shit about me. And I think it's funny because he reminds me of the truth of how I was when I was a teenager. And he doesn't hide that fact. He doesn't hide the fact that when he was in the youth investment school, which he goes to, and I still remember about a year ago, when everyone else was giving their speeches about their dreams and their visions and what they were going to do to actually, change, their life. And, I think Edward gave this great speech how he was going to start, really, becoming more organized, less just, aimlessly on social media. James gave a really good speech. Josiah said, I don't really have any purpose. And I was like, okay, well, do you know what you would like to do? He goes, no. And I said, how do you plan to change that? He goes, oh, I won't. I'll just keep playing games, I think. And that's what he said. There was no guilt. There was no nothing. And Jasmine goes, what would Josiah do? Yeah, I just kind of, at empaths, struggle a bit more with this. Yeah, look, most people as adults, this is why I've got this keenness to work with to work more with kids and with youth. Jesus said that the kingdom of heaven, he said, is for little children. He said, unless you become as a child, you won't enter the kingdom of God. Because what happens is you start literally thinking like an adult, like cares. Why are most people freaking out about this jab? Because I'm now an adult. I've got responsibilities. I've got a mortgage to pay. I've got a car to pay. Oh, how will I look? Whereas Josiah's like, I'm not taking any needle. What if you can't go to cafes? I don't care. I remember when they tried to vaccinate him in school a couple of years ago, he just said, he said, oh, you got to ask my mum. That's all he said to them. So they tried to call Grace and she just ignored the calls. And then he just kept turning up. And every time they'd ask him about it, he just would kind of say, oh, you have to ask my mum. And he just basically, it's just like not even a question to him. He goes, well, why would I do that? But what happens when we're adults? It's like, oh, I've got this, and oh, I might lose my job. Oh, it's affecting my sister. Oh, it's affecting my family. And like nearly all my family took the jab, and people say, how do you feel about it? I said, it doesn't worry me. It's not my body. What if they die? I said, well, they're going to die sometime, aren't they? So I'm surprised they haven't yet, but they're still alive. So I said, if they do die, I'll just make sure I organise the funeral and make it a good one. I completely mean that 100%. So it's like, Yeshua said, do nothing and it will be done for you. And the weird thing is because I don't have any attachment to my family dying, it doesn't really bother me. They bloom and just keep living. And I have to keep on growing with them and transforming my stuff with them. And like my mum's like 79 and still looks like she's 60, and my dad's 85 and still, quite normal. And they'll probably be 120 and still going on at this rate. And they probably have taken 58 jabs and probably every experiment, and they'll still be alive. That's kind of what I've come into grips with now with my family. So Jasmine, the realist church, anyone will be part of. Yeah. My aim is the most ridiculous church in the world. That's the whole point, make it a bit of fun and, kind of, make life interesting. So this really just means when you just let go, you just do nothing. Like, I don't have the slightest doubt. Like I've been saying that I've been claiming this huge block of land near us, the power station, for our work. And there's someone said, it'll cost you 100 million. I said, I said, well, that's what it's worth, but it won't cost me that. I said, I plan to get it for nothing. And they said, how? I said, I don't know. I said, I don't see why the government won't give it to me. They've got to give it to someone. So, yeah, Earth Mother, my mum called me selfish for not taking the jab and just wanted to affect me. Yeah, I would just say, yeah, I'm pretty selfish. I would agree. I'm a little bit selfish, I kind of value my ass and just shoving needles into my body. And I just say that to people when I say, I had the markets guy go, are you taking it for me? And I said, no, I don't really participate in clinical trials. I said, I haven't done one before in my life. And anyway, I don't really like needles. They scare me. They kind of don't know what to say. He just starts cracking up. He goes, really? He goes, yeah. And I said, yeah. I said, I didn't want to get a vasectomy because I didn't want them cutting my balls. I said, why would I get a needle shoved in me? So I just deliberately do like absurd analogies and things like that, So do nothing and it will be done for you. It's really taking your power back and just letting go. Because the way I see my life is that God will never let me perish or let me be without provision and sustenance. I mean, why would God? I mean, why would God put me on earth to do this mission? Like the councils, the higher masters, why would I choose to be here and live in poverty? I'm like, why would I want to suffer? It's just a silly idea. Generally, the only suffering which I have is when I get attached to things. So if I get attached to a girl and suddenly go, oh, she's my soulmate. Yeah, if she pulls away from me, I will get pretty upset. Or if I get attached to, traveling because I really wanted to go to Vegas and bang 3 strippers by the time I was, 55, and it doesn't happen to me and I'm devastated because I feel like I failed. Well, yeah, then I probably would suffer. So the whole point is just doing nothing and everything will be done for you. That's. I hope, Jasmine, that gives you a bit of an idea what it means. It's just letting go, just enjoying life and not trying to force things. That's probably the easiest way to summarize that. And I can remember when I was in school, it's why I relate to Josiah, I was always being put up the front of the class because I just didn't do any work. I just ignored my homework. My parents had to sit down with me and force me to do homework because I just didn't do any. And they all expected I would fail my TE, and I managed to pass it because I actually worked out the secret to get around the whole system. I found out a way to learn in 6 weeks what took everyone else a few years. I just worked out how to do it. So you always get the answers when you just trust in yourself and when you know that you have all the answers within you. That's what this is saying. So the hungry shall be filled. I love this particular scripture because what it says is those who hunger and thirst after righteousness will be filled. Now, something I said to Grace yesterday, I said, one of my things I'm now dealing with is I said, I just realized, I said, it's almost like I don't need people anymore. I don't need a woman in my life because I said, I'm actually fallen so deeply in love with Mother Mary and with God. I feel the presence of God nourishing my soul with so much richness. I find that no one in my life around me can satisfy me the way God does it. The more I hunger, and all that happens, I hunger more than ever now. I'm constantly, each day, there's this desire for the divine nourishment. This is what this teaches here. The more you connect with Mother Mary, with the Father, with Mary Magdalene, with Yeshua, with God, you start to discover what real love actually is. And David Data, in his great book, The Way of the Superior Man, puts it really well. He says that a man spends his whole life thinking he's looking for love, but he finds that true love for him is found in his purpose, and ultimately the source of all that, he always comes home to God. And I remember thinking, wow, it's such a profound statement that he thinks he's searching for a soul partner, but he's really searching for God and really hungering for God. And Matthew 5:7 gives a karmic law that the merciful will receive mercy. In other words, if you give to merciful, like I give a lot of mercy to people right now, what's happening in the world. I'm constantly giving because I know that if I'm giving a lot to help people right now in need, I'll get it back when I'm in need, when I'm having challenges. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. In other words, they move out of their delusion. In the night of delusion, there's 5 stages of the heart. And according to the 10 stages of the Bhagavad Gita, the 9th stage is what's called the night of delusion. And one of the delusions is the darkened heart, or Maya, which is what the vast majority of humanity live in. But the pure in heart, who purify their heart, purify their karma, who devote their life to purifying their karma, and I can honestly say there's only one thing that drives me right now is to purify my karma. I don't have any problem telling you that I'm selfish, but even in my giving back to the world, there's a lot of self-interest there. I know that by giving back to the world heavily, I am building up a lot of good karma for myself. I know I'm cleansing up my past life karma, and I know I'm fulfilling my dharmic duty. So I'm expecting a really good reward in the higher kingdoms. I'm expecting to enter nirvana. I'm expecting to complete my path on earth and complete everything. So I'm absolutely, doing that in my life. So Tasha says, hungering to see God in my partner. If not, difficult to have relationship, working on karma. Yeah, well, look, when I studied Tantra with a really great Tantra teacher, one thing that she taught, very similar to Osho, she said, it's hard in practice to do what I'm about to tell you. And she said, even I struggle with this a lot. But she said, actual pure Tantra, she said, is where you no longer see the person, but you really see God in the experience. And she said, if you could actually do that, you wouldn't actually get attached to each other. You would actually become more connected to God together. And you wouldn't actually become attached to each other. But she said, of course, in practice, the female pain body often comes out, or the male pain body, and then the fear of abandonment comes out for the female, and the fear of loss of freedom comes out for the male. And this is what she taught me. And that, of course, was proved to be very true. But she said in a pure tantric state, she said, you actually see God. You don't become attached to each other. You become connected to the experience. But as she owned with me, she said, but in the real world, that's not actually all that easy to do, because the pain body comes forth, the darkened heart, the woman's fear of losing the man. If the man then desires to have intimate sex with someone else, she starts to fear and what will happen, And equally the man, if his partner wants to have intimate sex with someone else, he fears losing her. And like, oh no, well, I can't have my woman leave me like that. She might go off with the other guy. And so what's called a scarcity comes back in. So that's in a way part of just the darkened heart experience. And I do feel that one of the things that I want to challenge in the coming days more and more in the City Awakening and in our work is challenge the myths and the norms on sexuality. And like there were some comments made before, which I really loved, where, why can't the women be true to themselves? And yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that it should be a case of choice. And yes, I mean, there is some truth, and I'm not labeling this, there is some truth in that as a rule, women often like to have that intimacy with one, but in saying that, there's plenty of women these days that don't want to have that and want to explore others themselves. And there's no real reason why women can't do the same thing. And equally, although men tend often to be more, polygamous, but in saying that, there's a lot of men who desire to be monogamous, who desire to have that union. And I just see it as a big balancing, and all the sexes kind of balancing out, and the labels be gradually dissolved. And so the truth is, it doesn't really matter what physical sex you are, it's who you choose to be and function in, So 5 stages of the heart. So darkened heart, propelled heart, steady heart, devoted heart, pure or Christ-like heart. So the pure in heart, it's where you start to dissolve that. And I'm really having to dissolve my illusions about that. Like I was very much in a patriarchal model, with men being a certain way and women being a certain way. And I've been dissolving that. And I'm discovering more and more that's actually not so in many cases. And I've just come to the point where, you know what, just be true to who you are. If you're a woman and you desire to be with one guy and you really desire, not because you're programming, then let that happen. If you're a man and desire one woman, then let that happen. Equally, if you desire to have many, then let yourself have the many. Doesn't matter what sex you are. It's just all about the choice that you choose to experience. That's it. So this is about seeing God, and you start to see God when your labels drop off. That's a summary of that one there. Your labels drop off. You stop labeling things. You stop labeling someone. Right now, there's so much labeling in that area. Like men are labeling women. Like, oh, if you do this, you're a slut. But equally, women are giving back. They're labeling the men. Oh, you're a cheater. Oh, you want a harem. Oh, we all laugh about it a few weeks ago when I started, prodding and egging people and shit stirring. And people were just reacting about the harem. But the truth is, men should have a harem if they want to. And equally, if women want to have a harem, they should be able to have one. So, if Grace wants to have 3 or 4 men, like my friend in Queensland had 5 boyfriends, absolutely. I think it's better if you do things with honesty and integrity, because I think it'll be easier. It'll be easier if you do things with integrity than if you don't. But nevertheless, the main thing is to be truthful to who you really are. And that's why the pure in heart, I see more and more, is where you actually are true to who you are. And in church, I was taught the pure heart means you're so Jesus-like, you're pure. You've conquered sexual energy, you've conquered this. I don't know. I just think that pure maybe is that you come to a place where you really have conquered it and mastered it, however you choose that. You may have just explored and had so much sex with so many different people or experiences, you know what, I don't need that anymore. And you've moved beyond that. For some people, it's just comfortable and you've mastered it in a way that works for you, where you have no guilt and you're okay with who you are. It could be that you have mastered money, where you've made so much money that you actually now don't need money anymore. Because, you know what, I made so much money, I may as well just give it all away, like Buckminster Fuller, the great philanthropist who made so much money, he was just giving away. So the pure in heart will see God because the labels drop off, and you can't see God when you're in duality. It's that simple. And duality is, by the way, as Solomon says in Ecclesiastes, it's when you try to be too righteous or too wicked, you're in duality. So if you're in darkness, you're in duality, but equally, if you're in light, you're in duality. If you are in light, too much light. And this is where many of the love and light are stuck in duality. They are just literally seeing everything as this, and these horrible men who have a harem, or men saying, these horrible toxic women who are sluts. That's just, both of them are equally a form of duality, and neither is seeing God because they're stuck in the labels. So the pure in heart moves beyond it. And I believe personally, these 5 stages that Yogananda talks about, you move through different stages, and then you come to this state where you just literally move beyond duality and you just see everything for what it is. For me, the more Christ-like I become in my life, the more I desire to dominate. I spent most of my life thinking that a good Christian man was a servant and money didn't matter. Now I'm like, I desire now to let the power. And I was telling my boys today, there's no reason why we aren't the biggest church in the world. Let's be the biggest church in the world. While we don't have the biggest wealth education center on planet Earth. I said, as far as I'm concerned, I personally have no doubt I'm the best in the world at what I do. I can't think of anyone better. And I said, in due course, everyone else will see it. And I remember reading that with Tim Grover in his book, Relentless, where he talked about Michael Jordan and what made him the greatest basketball player. He said, Jordan truly believes he's the greatest, but he backed that up with his action. He does insane training that no one else would do. He did action that no one else would do. He said when everyone else was exhausted, he was the one still training. When everyone else was taking time out to get injuries fixed, he was training through his injuries. In other words, he said he just did further than everyone else would do. And that's the pure in heart who see God. And the other one is blessed are peacemakers, for they shall basically, for they should be called the sons and daughters of God. So the peacemakers are those who seek to bring peace in all situations, and not a false peace, not where you try to be a diplomatic peace to make people happy around you. No, sometimes to get peace, you got to be a shit stirrer. Sometimes to get peace, you got to put some shit in people's face that makes them go, huh? And that's why I do that. I do that because you notice that when we first mentioned about sexual energy and about harems and all that, everyone was absolutely going off their nut about it. This week, everyone's a lot calmer about it because peace has come because we stirred the pot, got it all out into the surface, and now people are going, yeah, okay. And a great psychotherapist told me, you have to get the pot stirred up, and you got to bring the gunk to the surface, you got to stir the pot. In other words, you can't leave it at the bottom. And that's why you'll notice I'm a complete shit stirrer, because I like to stir the pot. And that's why I said to the boys, I said, I have no doubt if I took the Freedom Rally, I said it would take off, because I said what I would do is I'd stir the pot. I said I would stir everyone up and get everyone worked up, but then that would bring the issues to the surface. So trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. Last time, of course, I spoke on this one. So persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So what this is talking about is that people who are given shit not because they do stupid stuff, but because they really stand for what's right. So their family gives them a hard time over taking the jab, for example, or not taking the jab, and they just basically refuse to listen and stand true to their truth. That's the kingdom of heaven. You know, that is truly the kingdom of heaven when you are actually willing to do that and stand in your truth and really be honest with who you really are and not in any way try and be something that you're not. You know, that is true kingdom of heaven. So standing in your truth, yeah, no matter what the cost, absolutely. I made that decision years ago, that something that I learned, the power of sacrifice. You can't see a big change in your life and society without paying a cost. Martin Luther King, it cost him his life. Gandhi, it cost him prison. It cost different people different things. It may not cost you your physical life or prison, but it may cost you your job. It may cost you your financial life. It may cost you your financial security for a time. It may mean you got to live, you know, in debt with financial challenges for the next 2 years or year or so while you get yourself sorted out on your path. That may be the cost for you to be truthful. But unless you're willing to pay the price, Jesus said, you're not worthy of the kingdom of heaven to do what's right by you. Blessed are you when men shall revile you and persecute you and say all manner of evil against you for my sake falsely. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven, for so they persecuted they before you. So those who can receive blame and praise or adoration, insult, the same long attachment, tranquil before friend and foe alike, who's easy, contented, and of calm disposition. In other words, it doesn't matter if people are praising you, you go, okay, thanks, that's really cool. If people are giving you shit and blaming you, go, oh, really? Interesting. That's an interesting perception. Following what is right in spite of criticism. Yogananda says, if the criticism is just, correct yourself and remove an obstacle to happiness. Being hated or ostracized for being delinquent or spiritually degenerate is no cause for blessing. If the criticism is unjust and you're holding the truth manifested in the life of teachings of Christ in a Christ-like manner, rejoice more than ever to follow the ways of inner peace rather than temptation. I still remember years ago when I had an accountant who was a fellow accountant when I was speaking and running big seminars on tax planning, who was actually getting up and telling all of his clients that Warren Black was a scammer. And, you know, he taught, you know, what he taught was wrong. And I can remember my staff coming to me and said, do you realize what his clients are saying about you? And I said, oh, yeah, I've heard that. And he goes, oh, you got to sue him. Are you going to do that? I said, nah. He said, really? So, but what do we do when clients tell us that? I said, well, let's just fuck with his head. Let's do the exact opposite, you know? Just simply tell them that, nah, Lee's a great accountant. He does a good job. He just doesn't understand. He misunderstands Warren, doesn't know what he teaches. That's all you say to them, and then say nothing more. Then if they inquire further, then tell them more about what I believe. I said, anyway, it doesn't bother me. If he keeps doing that, he'll lose all his clients anyway, and we'll take over all his contracts. I said, you watch. I said, karma will bite his ass, and we'll get all of his business. And that's what actually ended up happening. He ended up losing his contract a year later over something stupid he did, and then the guy who was giving him the contracts rang me up, and I took over it. So when you do that, it always works out in your favor when you stay calm and stay balanced in the midst of that, and just realize usually when people are criticizing you and saying terrible things about you, it's just their insecurity. And now in saying that, I have my moments, like yesterday, for example, I was driving down the road and I had there was an emergency lane and the traffic was so busy, I'm not emergency in the bus lane. So as I looked, there was no cars coming. So I just drove into the bus lane, and I always do that if there's no buses coming. And my kids always giggle and think it's really funny. And I just drove down the bus lane, past all these cars, and sometimes they get very upset at me when I do it, and I get things. And I came up and there was like a roadworks thing right way down the street. So of course I went to move in, and this guy clearly took great offense because he saw what I did, and he started beeping at me and pushing from behind to stop me getting in. So let him get in, and he was yelling at me, and I just pulled the finger at him, and I just yelled, fuck you, mate. And I just beat him and just kept pulling finger signs at him. And of course, the roadworks guys were going with me as I went past, and I just waved at them. And that felt pretty fun, even though I completely lost my shit. But hey, you know, we all got to have a 3D side to ourselves. Anyone else here who's a road rager? Who's got a little of that? M road raged. Yeah. Earth, one of my favourites. Fun from time to time. Tanya, I'm glad I don't drive you. I'd be mortified. Yeah, Grace hates driving with me. Absolutely hates it. James and Edward absolutely love it, but Grace reckons I've ruined Edward because he drives like me now. He starts yelling at people and all that. Whereas James is still a really good one. Edith's cranky on the road. Penny, that's funny. Yeah, I'm sure you'd be a feisty one, Penny. So, Jasmine, you can come driving with me one time. I'm sure you would enjoy it. So, yeah, so I just let my true self come out at times. So, yeah, Yogananda says, only those souls who keep their consciousness fixed in the spiritual eye will enter the blissful range. In other words, really, really learn just to be centered and all that. The funny thing is when I do that, I'm actually very centered. I kind of do it as a bit of a shit stir and I find it funny. And I actually do it more for the fun of it than anything else. Just to give them shit, to balance them out a little bit. Because I think, well, if you're going to give me shit, then you deserve to get some back. And I just kind of do it for a bit of fun. So let's just continue on. And what I wanted to share a bit about today was the salt of the earth. And Sashi likes to wind people up. Yeah, well, I'm sure that's why you're like coming here. Nadine's a fearless driver. Yeah, you have to watch out for Scorpios in Brisbane. Hey, Nadine. So the salt of the earth. So you are the salt of the earth, but the salt had lost its saviour. How shall it be salted? It's good for nothing but to be cast out and trodden underfoot. Now, why did Christ give this analogy? Because salt was really valuable in the time of Christ. Like rock salt lessened dehydration in the desert when people travel in extreme desert heat. So rock salt is really, really good to do that. I know with me, I like taking salt quite regularly just to lessen my own dehydration and make sure I stay really balanced with my salts in my body. And in fact, it was so valuable that there were trading routes set up in ancient civilizations, and Roman soldiers were even given salt as their salary. So when Jesus was saying that you're the salt of the earth, he was saying basically that you are a really valuable commodity, like a really, really, really valuable commodity. So, and Jesus was saying as the sons and daughters of God, we are so valuable to God in this earth. And we are valuable, you know, we are a valuable commodity. And we should behave as if we're a valuable commodity. We should be behaving like we're royalty. And in fact, it's saying here that Lamentations says we're as fine gold. Now, Lamentations is an interesting book because that was a book written by the prophet Jeremiah after the children of Israel were taken into captivity by the Babylonians. And there's a lot of scriptures that show in the Bible what happens to people who get actually taken, who give up their power so much that they actually end up being given over to the dark, so to speak. And we can see that in Lamentations 4, you know. And this is the thing. So we're here to make a real difference, but this is a question that was raised by Yogananda and by Jesus. What happens, though, when the children of God, who've been placed upon the earth for a mission to bring the light of Christ to the earth, to actually bring a change to the world, to shine the light forward, to actually build churches and spiritual centers that get a good balance between spirituality, financial and commerce and achievement. And as Yogananda and Yeketswa say, you know, we're meant to be bringing this wonderful balance between great achievement. What's interesting is that many of the greatest achievements scientifically and commercially were actually done by followers of Christ. Henry Ford was like that. You know, as followers of Christ, of the Buddha, of whoever we follow in our Christed walk, then we're here to shine brightly. Some of us shine brightly by building amazing industries and businesses, coming up with great inventions. Some of us by building enterprises that change the world. That's why I love the Mormons in Salt Lake City. What these people do with some of their products, they dominate the network marketing of the world and many of the products that they do. And although I don't like a lot of network marketing, the Mormon products and business ethic is phenomenal. Like I love the Mormons. When I was in Salt Lake City, I was blown away. Wonderful place to be in. And they really show that in business and industry. And then for some, we're here to build churches that are really what's called awakening centers that are designed to purify people, help them cleanse their karma, and ultimately have a bit of fun, build connection, build fellowship, build bonding with people, and help people find good connections, good partners, and eventually ascend and complete our path on earth. That's what churches are meant to do. They're here to make the light shine brightly, not to, as the Earth Mother says, brainwashed and dimming their light. So what happens, though, when the children of God stop being the light and get caught up in the society? Alberto Villoldo puts it really, really well when he says that in his basic shamanic books. He says that many of the shamans, unfortunately, get caught up with the energy and the frequency of the cities that they live in. And they go in there to be a light and raise the frequency, but eventually they become part of the problem because they can't see outside of it. And that's why outside prophets and shamans get sent into places to wake them up and to give them a shake-up. And you can see that with Melbourne right now. You know, you can see that with Sydney. You can see that with Perth. And so the churches that were sent here to be a force of light have completely dimmed their lights by getting like commercial recognition, like completely submitting under the church system. Chiropractors and podiatrists and healers have gone and regulated themselves under their boards and given themselves over to APRA, and now are in shock as APRA are mandating that podiatrists, chiropractors, physiotherapists basically have to get jabbed. But as I said to someone, you can see the cleverness of it. The dark tricked the people of God into compromising. The people of God stopped standing firm in their light. The early church was persecuted and people were murdered and lost their lives because they refused to license their churches or give up their businesses under the Roman Empire. They chose to stay sovereign and in their power. And the churches today have chosen to do what's easy. They've chosen to go and do the simple thing. Oh, it doesn't hurt if we regulate. Doesn't hurt if we do this. Oh, it doesn't hurt if we do this. Oh, it doesn't hurt if we register this. Oh, it doesn't hurt if we do this. Oh, it doesn't hurt if my chiropractic comes onto this. You know, I've got to obey the laws of the land. Oh, look, I've got to obey the laws of the land and be a good citizen, you know, and show the light by doing that. Yes, we've got to show God's glory by honoring the state. And before we know it, we've given up our power. I know for years with our church, City Awakening, or what used to be called Fruitful Vine, Grace and I refused to register it. And the only reason we did was because I wrote a clause within it clearly stating that we only agree to register on the strict condition that you're following the law of God. And anything that you're following the law of God in your government, then we will honor it. But if you break the law of God, then we will no longer honor that anymore. And we regard the law of God to be superseding yours. And actually proved our church with that clause in our deed. So I was comfortable because I have a conditional clause. And then if they try to go against their agreement, I can just, you know, unregister it and tell them where to go. So the thing is that the churches today have given up their power and people have given up their power. So what happens when the sons and daughters of God have given up their light and they no longer shine brightly anymore? I mean, what Jesus says is they're only good to be trampled underfoot. And Lamentations 4 says we're worth nothing except to be given over as manure, as dunghills. We're handed to Dr. Bill to experiment with his anal swabs, hand over into the outer darkness to serve our allotted penalty. And the allotted penalty, when you actually read the Buddhist teachings, as well as the Gnostic teachings, is that there's lower astral realms where souls are sent to work out their karmic, called the outer darkness. And that is why humanity is always given a chance to clear their karma, given a chance to redeem their karma. People are begging for a chance to be incarnated on planet Earth to fast track their karma by coming into a Hunger Games type scenario like we're in and be able to cleanse their karma quickly to limit their penalty and to enable themselves to not only get not penalized, but to be able to evolve and move to the next stage of evolution, like in a video game. But in fact, when we don't listen over lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, as the Keys of Enoch shows, eventually we're handed over to, as it says, to the magistrate. We're handed over into the prison warden, and we're sent into the outer darkness, which are the realms of chaos, for an eon to serve our karmic penalty. And the Buddhist teach is something like there's hundreds and hundreds of different astral realms and dungeons, where depending on people's lives, they live different levels of consequences. You know, some are just in pure darkness. Some become like frozen kind of lava or rock. And I've seen these realms. I've gone in there in visions. Some go into, the worst souls end up going into places they get tortured in some form. Those who've been particularly bad and tortured and mistreated humanity lifetime after lifetime, or continue to violate laws, go into realms where sometimes they experience torture. Because what happens is we reap what we sow over and over and over and over again as we continue to sow. And that is why it's so important to clear our karma, because karmic law is our protection. It stops things getting out of hand in our lives and in society and in the earth. Imagine if everyone did whatever they wanted on the earth whenever they felt like it with no karma. We would completely destroy the earth, you know, and everything in record time, as what happened about 5,000 years ago, which compelled them to bring in the flood of Noah. Hence, they had to bring in strict karmic law into this planet to basically get things back into balance. So fortunately, through karmic clearing protocols, through the higher universes, through the Christ, through the Kriya Masters, there's protocols where we can clear our karma. Through the Christed portals and the Christed energies, we can clear our karma. We can clear lifetimes of karma in record time. We can release it very quickly. We can release it through our bodies. We have various crystals. We have various herbs. We have so many things to help us. We have each other. We have spiritual teachers. We have prophets. We have so many people who are here waiting with their arms reached out to help humanity to shift their karma quickly. So great is the love of God of the councils for humanity. But as the Council of Nine told me 3.5 years ago when I was taken into those realms and shown what was to come, they told me, they said the karma of humanity has reached up to heaven and the complaints from all the galactics has now hit us and we are now compelled to deal with it. And people on earth will lose their money and the churches will be made accountable. And they said, that's why it's time for you. You got to do what you were meant to do here, which is to build this church, build this work, to help people cleanse their karma, help them move to ascensions the church is meant to do, and build a financial education center that we're building right now. And Lamentations 4 puts it really, really well. It's a very sobering message that was given to the children of Israel when they'd been taken into captivity and they'd lost their freedom to a communist basically group called the Babylonians, who not only, you know, took their freedoms away, but would kill them, torture them, take the women as slaves, everything, you know, and make the men, the educated men, their slaves and things like that. It says, how is the gold become dim? And remember what I said, the sons and daughters of God are the fine gold. How is the most fine gold changed? The stones of the sanctuary, and remember, in the Bible it actually says that the children of God, we are actually living stones of a sanctuary. We are a living house, a living building. We are a building of esoteric inner light body stones together. All 35 of us on this webinar right now are a living stone group together. We are all living stones together, built as one house, one temple. How it's been poured in the top of every street. The precious sons of Zion, comparable to gold, how they are esteemed as earthen pitchers, the work of the hands of the potter. And then it says here, they that feed delicately are desolate in the streets. Those that are sensitive, those that are indigos, those that eat organic food, those that do all this stuff here, and now being forced to eat it. They're broke, they're in poverty. This is where society is heading towards over the next few years. You will see these days in Melbourne and everywhere, if not already. And that's why only by getting back to realizing where this is going, when we stop being the fine gold, that we then become this. So when we become the dim gold, we stop shining our light. This is where we go. Because either we're ascending or like evolving, or we're involving or descending. They that were brought up in scarlet, in luxury, prosperity, with successful businesses, now embrace dunghills because they've been shut down, they've been locked down, their businesses have been taken from them. And there'll be more businesses taken from people. They won't even hide it. For the punishment of the iniquity of the daughter of my people is greater than the punishment of the sin of Sodom. Now, if you actually read the sin of Sodom, it was quite bad. It says in Ezekiel that which actually confirms the history books, which actually show what happened to Sodom and Gomorrah and why they were destroyed, like in the book of Jasher and Josephus. Sodom and Gomorrah were incredibly prosperous places. In fact, they were in prosperous, fertile land, very much like Australia and US. Prosperous, fertile, rich lands. It was so prosperous, the people prospered. They all had nice houses. They all had like great everything. And so what happened with Sodom and Gomorrah was that the people then started to get more and more like complacent. They started to coerce each other. They started to become like lapse, you know, they turned into sexual perversions. They stopped serving each other. They mistreated strangers. They mistreated the poor. They started to create castes and classes in the society. They had the rich and they had everyone else. They went all this path. The courts were taken over by secret societies. And this is all true. You can read about this in history. And eventually, Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed and overthrown in brimstone. Atlantis was overthrown in fire and water. And don't think that we won't have our own energetic destruction in fire and water. We may not get fire and water hit us in the physical. We may or may not. I don't know. We may not have that. But spiritually, we can see this happening to our societies. And it says here, the Nazarites, who were by and large the indigenous pure, basically leaders of the time, were purer than snow. They were whiter than milk, more ruddy in body than rubies. Their polishing is of sapphire. It says very, very beautiful, rich, prosperous people. Their appearance or visage is blacker than a coal. They're not known in the streets. Their skin cleaves to the bones. It's withered. It becomes like a stick. In fact, they that are dead are better than those that die of hunger and gradually pine away with broken hearts. So this whole chapter is a very lamentable book when you read this book. And you can see this here as well in Lamentations 2. And of what happens when the sons of God and daughters of God stop being the sons and daughters of God. It says, how has the Lord covered the daughter of anger of Zion with a cloud in his anger and cast down from heaven to earth the beauty of Israel? So when people say God is always love and light, oh, no. But it's not the case at all. Basically, God is the balancing force that we all are living in. When we're too caught up with light and ourselves, we get the balancing force of the other side. When we're too caught up with the other side of darkness, then we can balance out with light. And so it says, and so when you start to think about it, this is really deep, higher wisdom, you know? So he's cut off in his fierce anger all the horn of Israel. And yeah, Jasmine says he fears God. I won't deny that for a minute. I fear God, absolutely. And in the same way that I know William used to say that he feared his father, you know, and in a healthy way, not in a like, but he knew, you know, he feared the consequences, but he knew that I would always follow through with what I promised. And if I told him I would do something terrible to him if he didn't listen to me, he knew I meant every minute of it. And that's why the wisest man who ever walked the earth, King Solomon, says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, the beginning of wisdom, it says in another translation. The fear of God is the beginning of wisdom, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. We live in a foolish, stupid, fucked up society today, and I think it's fair to say that. And, you know, fortunately, there's kinder, nicer, sweeter people on earth than me, but seriously, I rather say it as it is. I fear God, and I remember I was shitting myself when I had my encounter with the Council of Nine and with the Father, and he showed me where, and I went through a judgment day about 3 and a bit years ago, where I was shown all my failings in my life. I was systematically walked through them and why my life had basically broken down and why our work had stopped succeeding until I was sobbing and saying, look, I don't care. Just give me a simple life. I've basically fucked up. And the Father spoke to me clearly. I had a direct encounter and the Father said, I love you, Warren. And I desire to take you to greatness and help humanity, but basically you've been an idiot. And he said, and I'm here to show you that, how you've been an idiot. So you can learn from this because I am going to give you a second chance. He said, I'm going to rebuild the works that you've done previously. And you're going to, and he said, I'm going to give you and grace a second chance. And you're going to learn from your mistakes of years ago. But he said, you can't learn until I show you them. And I got 3 days, I got stripped. You know, I was shown all my failings in life. And by the time I finished, I was in shock. But I just said, look, thank you, God, for your mercy towards me. And that's why it says, don't be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. It shall be health to your flesh and marrow or life to your bones. Do you know, I find the more I fear God, the more it's health to my flesh and life to my bones. Every day I live, and when I say fear, I revere the law of God. And I know that if I choose to walk away from my path and start being a fuckwit, I will start getting fuckwit consequences. And I don't have any problem with that. Like a life review, Sashi, absolutely. I remember being shown my last life review. I was actually taken in the halls of the Akashic and I was shown what happened in my last life review. And in my last life review, I was sobbing because I realized in the lifetime before this one, I had absolutely, completely gone off my path and why I'd been sent. And I was begging for another chance. I actually was saying, look, I said, I will make it right this time. And I even said to them, do whatever it takes. Every time I go off my path, strip my wealth, strip my life, leave me desolate. Do not let me get away with things again. And that was a healing moment for me, because all my life, as soon as I got off my path, I mean, I went broke in business 3 times, and to the point where I just given up and thought, God, my life feels like a permanent fuck up. And I saw that that's what I'd actually asked. I said, do not let me get away. Because in my last lifetime, I was a mobster. You know, I actually ran, and I was sent there to break open the Rothschild's banking system in Bavaria, Germany. And I actually turned into a mobster, and I took advantage of the banking loopholes, became very rich. I got a team of thugs and got them to go around. And I never physically beat people up because deep down I was a kind soul still. But I used to say, now let's just scare the shit out of them and we'll get our money out of them. I roped my son into it. I was shown various people in this lifetime I'd roped into the swindle, and I was shown various people I'd swindled, and that's why I'd been making it right with them. So I learned from all of that to fear God, and it actually, believe you me, it's the greatest place to be in. That's why I live a peaceful life. I'm true to myself, because every day I live my life, I know I'm just here to do my dharmic service and do my mission and make sure I do it really well and not fuck it up, you know, in any way whatsoever. And if I do, just this time around, I know, but every day I'm asking for guidance and to make sure I stay true to my path. And there's a wonderful scripture actually in the book of Isaiah, which actually says that. And this is always the prayer which I make. It says here that I always pray Isaiah 30 verse 21, where it says, and your ears shall hear a word behind you saying, this is the way, walk ye in it when you turn to the right hand. So every day I just ask, I said, if I'm in any way going off track with my life, let me get a little bit of a gentle, anal swab up my ass to keep me on track. And I will generally, I'll get a gentle little Dr. Bill anal swab up my ass to keep me on track. So that's what happens when we go off our allotted path. And that is why we are here to make a difference. But when we go off our trap, we are given nothing except to be given as manure to be handed over. So Yogananda, throughout history, whenever the children of God walked away from their calling, they were handed to the enemy to be brought back into balance. And in Judges, as a whole book, which talks about every time that the children of the light walked away from their call, they were handed over to the dark. They had their money taken off them. They were forced into taxation. They were forced into slavery. They were even warned that if you ever come under a king, you will lose your freedom. You're meant to be a sovereign people. And the whole book of Judges is a whole story of people who are called to be empowered and be a sovereign community who are not under the rest of the world. And we're told that, you know, you're not meant to be under the government of this earth. You're meant to be living your own sovereignty. But over and over again, the people preferred to give up their power and put themselves under a king because that means they look better, they could be slacker, and the kings and the leaders would do everything for them. And whenever they would do that, their consequence was, rather than being the light of the earth and being a powerful example to the world, who the world would look up to, they became the slaves of the world. So generally, the destiny of the indigo or child or daughter of son or daughter of God is either to be the kings, the heads of the earth, or we are to be basically the assholes of the earth, to be anal swapped. And the question is, and I know which one I would prefer. And which one would you prefer? Do you prefer to be the tail, or do you prefer to be the head? And Proverbs says that whenever we go off and we start diminishing our power, becoming disempowered, starting to give up our rights to governments, to people around us, to our partners, to anyone else. I remember the biggest thing I got told off in my life review, the biggest thing I got told off for wasn't actually even the businesses and the church. But the father said to me, the church I was disappointed with you about, the businesses is just one of his things. But he said, I was so mad at you, you kept giving up your power to women around you. That's the biggest thing. Like, why did you give up your power to your partners? Why did you give up your power to your mother? Why did you do this? And I was in shock. And that was the biggest thing I got my ass spanked for. And that's why these days I don't give up my power to anyone. So we're here to be the sons and daughters of the earth and to be the light of the earth. Otherwise, Dr. Bill will get full access to your ass. And I'm sure no one here wants that. So we're here to make a difference. And Yogananda says it like this: by desecrating the image of God through our ignorant living, we lose our essential soul qualities of service and are no longer serviceable on earth. This is in the second coming of Christ. Unless we repent, we are dispensed with for more profitable souls. In other words, as the councils of nine have said in the higher mystery school teachings, what they're doing right now on earth is they're stretching out and choosing the souls that they want to be part of a new fifth dimensional earth. Yes, we are ascending into a fifth dimensional earth. Yes, we're moving into a whole new timeline. But do you really think that the councils and that the masters intend to bring everyone on there? Of course not. Most people, the moment they were on that fifth dimensional earth, would pollute it. Most of us here right now, if we were part of fifth dimensional earth, would pollute it. So that is why we are here, to cleanse our karma, do our work of service, that we are worthy of being part of a fifth dimensional earth. In other words, it's like if you have a beautiful business or a beautiful family environment of peace and all your kids are in order, and you bring in someone really person in your house to live with there who doesn't honor your values, who basically walks around, leaves dishes everywhere in the house, takes money out of your purse whenever they feel like it, doesn't tell you. I mean, you want that person out of your house. So this is what Jesus is saying. When you got someone who lifetime after lifetime refuses to grow and take responsibility, then they're good for nothing. That is why most people, I'm not here to teach most people. Jesus himself said, I'm not here for the world. I'm here for the children of God and those who want to align with the children of God. I don't care about most people in Melbourne. I don't care about most people in Sydney. I don't care about most people in Perth. I really don't. That is why when some people say, I'd love you to do a clearing over this city, I'm like, well, I don't really want to. I don't care. That city can go to Hades as far as I'm concerned. But if there's people in that city who desire to redeem that city, like Melbourne or Sydney, I'll help you, and we will help you as much as we actually can. So that's in conclusion here with that particular stuff. Once we start getting into addictions, we start going into duality, we start moving away, we are no longer fit for service anymore. We are no longer fit for service anymore. And that is why I love to give this quote from Marianne Williamson. Our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Nelson Mandela spoke this at his inaugural speech. That's not the thing, So our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate, but that we're powerful beyond measure. It's our light and our darkness that frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We're meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is in us. It is not just in some of us, it's in all of us. And as we let our own light shine, we give others permission to do the same. And as we're liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. And as an example, who here, just by coming to these webinars for the last few months, has already noticed you feel more permission to be you, to be an arsehole, or to let your light shine, or to be more truthful with your family around you, and with the Dr. Bills who want to anal swab you? Who notices that you're more, empowered to speak out about your assholes? Yeah, quite a few of you now. So many of you now, your assholes are more protected, whereas previously they were ready to be penetrated, whereas now you've got like a condom over your assholes. And that's a really great thing. So Sashi's not tactful anymore. Yeah, Miko probably loves this dark humor, I'm sure. So, so basically, you're the light of the world, is what Jesus said. This is one of my most wonderful scripture, William Lovely. We are here to change the world and bring light and peace to all around. That's what we're here to do. An ambassador represents the country that you live in and will be recalled if they get caught up in the affairs of the country they're in. So imagine if the Australian ambassador went to France and then next minute started betraying Australia's interests and getting involved with French terrorist groups against Australia. I mean, they would want to recall this ambassador and bloomin' anal swab him and then put him in prison. So when we are sent forth from the higher realms as indigo children, as the sons and daughters of God, to bring the light up to the world, and we get caught up in the affairs of the world, the council's like, what the fuck's this guy doing, man? What are they doing? 1 John 3 warns us, that says, do not love the world, nor the things that are in the world. It says, if anyone loves the world, then the love of the Father is not in them. In other words, when you get caught up with attachments of the earth, there is a compensating adjustment. So the more you get attached to something of the earth, like let's say, for those of you who've had a soulmate partnership with someone, you probably would notice that your connection with the Father could often drop off when you get caught up and infatuated with someone. A true soul journey with someone is actually quite balanced. I found the best feminine connections I've had is ones that have been very balanced, where I'm not too into them, and I'm not too out of them. That's what I've noticed. The best feminine connections I've had has been with girls who I'm actually not too into them and not too out of them. In other words, I'm kind of enjoy them, they enjoy me, but it doesn't really bother me too much what happened to them, whether I see them again or not. I just enjoy it while I'm having it. As soon as I feel a deep attachment from me to them or them to me, I tend to notice that I lose more interest in it. And that's why it says we're not to love the world nor the things that are in the world. The love of the Father is not within us. For it says the flesh of the pride of life, the ego, it says it's temporary and get us caught up in the darkness, but the will of God endures forever. So Yogananda says, you humans make the earth meaningful and full of beauty by their presence. Nature's beauty, the wonderful mountains, the sun, stars, and moons serve no purpose without us. And just imagine the perpetual oblivion if there was no humans that were on the earth right now. All the magnificence of the beach, all the beauty of the mountains, all the wonderful stars don't mean anything. They just exist. We make it worth living by our appreciation of it. We make the planet worth living by our love of it. So we're not meant to silently sit in ignorance and do our own thing and live it up. We're here to enjoy, but the best way to protect yourself from Dr. Bill's anal swab is to serve others and serve the planet and be the light of the earth. In other words, in the middle of the darkness right now, what's going on in society, you are the light of the world. If your family is giving you pressure, remember, you are the light of the world in your workplace. Without them, without you, they have no hope. Do you know, my Pilates instructor told me about 6 weeks ago, she said to me that she was going to stop me, getting the jab, or stop me from seeing her if I hadn't had the jab by a certain day. My first thing was like, what? And intuitively, I thought, you know what? I'm the light of the world. I'm not going to take it. I'm just going to stay here and keep being who I really am and being true to myself. And I have. I've noticed that in the last 6 weeks, we've had some extraordinary discussions. And now she's starting to think about, how things could work and whether things could work differently. Now she's starting to think about it. And we're having some really productive discussions. And she's starting to question things and ask more questions of me about the whole thing and how it can work and meaningful discussions. I know without me, who else is going to be a light to her? Without me, who's going to be a light to certain other people in my life? Without you, who's going to be a light to your family, to your workplace, to your people? So remember that. We're here to enjoy the planet, but we're here to serve others in the planet. Without Jasmine, I don't know how her family would have gone with this whole thing. They probably would have been a mess. So that's why Jasmine knows she's a light to her family right now. And that's why Jesus said, you're the light of the world and you cannot be hidden. He says, a city on a hill can't be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick to give light to all that are in the house. So let your light shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. Even the dark start to glorify your Father in heaven, and they can't help it when they see someone standing in their truth and in their power. I can remember when the media interviewed me years ago, because all this stuff came out in an undercover investigation about me having offshore companies in the Panama Papers. And they just said to me, how do you feel about the fact you're helping Australians, pay less tax? Don't you feel you're cheating others? And I just said, well, I just laughed. I said, that's one way of looking at it. I said, another way of looking at it is the fact that Google and Apple pay less than 1% tax. So why are they, a small business is not paying their fair share of tax. They're paying nearly all of it. And Apple and Google are paying nothing. So I've tried to help everyone pay their fair share of tax by making sure everyone pays a little bit less. They're paying more what Google and Apple are paying. So if you want them to pay more, then we increase what Google and Apple are paying, and then everyone pays 10%. And lady just pissed herself laughing, and she goes, I can't argue with that. So you see, we can be a light, and we can change people's thinking through humor and just by being truthful to who we really are, and not trying to hide our darkness and just being true, like just being who we are. And my biggest fear when talking about sexuality was that my Christian family members all around me would find out if I was talking about polygamy and all that kind of stuff on webinars. 5 years ago, I would have been terrified that my mum and that my family would have found out. Now I'm like, well, I will just talk to them about it and who cares, So Yogananda says that souls lighted with the presence of God aren't meant to be clouded in ignorance, uselessness, materiality, and death, but are to be illuminated with wisdom, goodness, and enlightened spiritually darkened lives, because evil is a destroying force for the soul. This is all from the second coming of Christ. So what he says finally is open and sincere living where you're being true to yourself, just really true to who you are. That's why I love being around Grace. Grace is totally true to herself these days. I know she loves that with me, even though I'm appalling. It's helped her bring out her dark side, because Grace was a good little girl before in many ways, a good little Christian girl. Followed by good actions helps to overcome darkness and lead people to truth and enlightenment. The spiritual teacher shines in the midst of darkness and declension from the moral law. In other words, in times like this in the world, this is our playground. For the children of God, dark times are our playground. Nobody listens to us when things are good. I mean, 3 years ago, could you honestly talk to many people about spiritual truths? Most people didn't care. They wanted to go on property rampages. They wanted to go and buy stocks and shares. They wanted to live their life. They wanted to go on all kinds of stuff. They wanted to go to the cafes. They wanted to go to Lygon Street and eat food. They wanted to hang out at the pub. Now, you got more people willing to listen to the message. People are willing to listen to your message. In a year from now, could you imagine that you'll be having lots of people wanting to listen to you? I mean, Sam Buckley would never have seen her mum probably make the changes she'd made if this hadn't happened. Her mum would probably be the same person, Sam, I'm sure you know, she was 2 years ago. So, Jasmine, I'm sure your sister and your brother would have been not the people that they are today. So this is the light. This is the days of great light for you. This is the date when, as Jesus said in Isaiah, he says, for the world and those who are attached to the things of the earth, these are dark days of darkness. For the children of the light, they don't see the darkness. They are the balancing force. You see the light. Personally, I think these are the greatest times I've ever lived with. I love these times. My last lifetime, I was a mobster. I was coercing everyone. I thought a whole lifetime. So I'm used to being a mobster and coercion. So I just piss myself laughing at what the governments are doing and how stupid people are. I just kind of laugh because at heart, I'm a mobster. I own it. I love extorting and coercing people. I think it's awesome. So for me, when I see governments doing this, I just piss myself laughing. And I said, I'd probably do everything that they're doing if I was in charge. I'd probably pass some outrageous law just to take the piss out of stupid people. I even said last year, and I meant it, I said I would pass a law requiring everyone by law to have a carrot up their ass, and I'd see who actually complied. And then I'd sit there filming it and pissing myself laughing. So, you know, it's just owning that we've all got this dark side to us, every single one of us, and not live in a delusion about ourselves, like think we're goody little individuals, because we're not. I mean, I'm certainly not. I mean, gosh, I'm a horror. I reckon I'm a atrocious individual. So, yeah, so she likes practicing civil disobedience. I mean, Martin Luther King was a badass. He's openly going against society. He's deliberately walking into Woolworths and white people walking in deliberately with black people, knowing they'd be arrested and be beaten in prison for doing it. That's how the civil rights movement happened in America. You had white people walking in with coloured people and standing together, and like in Woolworths and getting arrested for doing it, things like that, you know? So it's absolute. So these are the days we live in. Civil disobedience that's done correctly and done properly, and doing and letting your light shine in whatever way you're called to let your light shine. So really now, any questions or thoughts, and really just to share your greatest lessons and what you got out of today. And Grace and Steve, while everyone's putting up their thing, just come on the camera and let's just all start talking and yabbering away as to what we've learned. So Grace, who wants to come on the camera can share. Grace and Steve, come on. Type in the chat. Let's all chat a bit, guys.
Just feeling your fire, Warren.
Dr. Bill on fire. Yeah.
And swabs.
It's quite interesting, Warren, what you said with 3 years ago, talking, or two things probably stand out for me. Number one, when you're saying 3 years ago, you couldn't have talked like you do now. You know, people were just, I guess, so caught in the 3D of acquiring more trinkets, you know, houses, shares, parties, etc. And the second thing is, which is really interesting, is what you said when you asked people, you know, even just in the 6 weeks, you know, 2 or 3 months, whatever it is, whether you're more comfortable being you. And I reflect on, it was probably, I don't know, 18 months ago, maybe it was 12 months ago, the day in one of the sessions, that we were having, what the day Grace said to me, you know, you're only really happy when you're grumpy. And my initial reaction was just like, well, fuck off. No, I'm not. But I just paused, and it just really hit me that was the first time, I think, at least emotionally, anyone had ever given me permission to be grumpy. If I was feeling like shit, it was okay to feel like shit. And so what you've said today about that freedom to feel and be and say what you, you know, what is true for you, is really a very liberating thing. The irony of it was that in Grace saying that and me actually going, actually, you're right, I am only happy when I'm grumpy. The grumpiness kind of has slowly lifted because I wasn't fighting it, I guess. Do you remember that day, Grace?
Oh, yeah, I do very much. It was a Monday early in the morning, Steve.
Yeah, correct. It was. You're only happy when you're grumpy. Oh, fuck off. Oh, hang on. Yeah, you're actually right. So yeah, now I give myself permission. If I'm grumpy, I feel it. I feel it deeply. I'm grumpy. Yeah, I sit with it, and I'm okay. I don't judge myself for it.
Steve, I've had a similar experience of owning my negativity. And Grace pointed out again. Grace pointed out lots of things, and she pointed it out, and I went right through it and worked it out, and it's made a huge difference, really. Yeah,
you're no longer the
so
negative Millie as much.
Well, it's not. It's really interesting because it comes up still, but it doesn't bother me. It's sometimes quite helpful because it can help me see another point of view, all that sort of thing. It's just part of me. It doesn't own me anymore.
Yeah, you're free to be in that part of your humanity. Yeah.
It's true. Well, the fact is, we're in this 3D, and in this 3D, it means we're light and dark. So why avoid the darkness in us, the shadows in us? Embrace the fullness of it, because really the definition of light really is so much darkness in there. The brighter your light is, isn't it? You need both. That's the fact. And I love how you keep saying, Steve, the reminder of we are human. We are human species, and we're ridiculous species, really. But that's the humor of it, and embracing every trait that it's going to be okay. You know, there is no shame, there is no guilt, there's nothing there. And going back to, who said about fear? I mean, I'm more these days, I'm more fearful in that I'm not being true to myself, true to what's going on in me. Because if I'm not being truthful, well, you know, everyone else will want to be truthful around me. So first and foremost, the rule number one is that you be who you are, and that others will be authentic and real around you, isn't it? That's just the principle. Well, after that fiery message, gosh, let the dust settle, eh?
Well, what did I say? I come and I stir over the pot. Then, of course, next week, Grace, you're speaking, and the week after, we're roping Steve into it. So.
Well, actually, I asked Steve if he could take my place next Sunday.
Oh, good. So Steve's next Sunday, you're the one after. Perfect. So
yeah.
You'll be getting a lighter, more wonderful kind of integrated message from Steve. As Steve is, you know, I come in and I anal swab everyone and get everyone, and then you and Grace come in and settle everyone down.
Yeah, we'll have Mr. Grumpy next week.
Yeah, Grumpy will be there.
Actually, you know, I mean, to share with everybody, since Steve actually took full ownership of his grumpiness, he's been wonderful. He's been more pleasant to deal with. And also Christine said her negativity, because, you know, we can feel the vibe, can't we? We can feel the vibe from someone who's avoiding whatever they're avoiding, and we can feel it. We can sense the vibe. And so you might as well just hang it out, bring it out, and it serves them. It serves yourself. It serves all of us to be who we are. And one of our live events back in August, I had an incident with someone, and I was absolutely ruthless with them, and they've never come back. And you know, I was a total right bitch, because I'm totally different when it comes to business, and when it's this kind of environment, it's different as well. So I wear many hats, and I can be whatever I want to be, because that's the beauty about being creators. All of us here are creators, aren't we? We can be whatever we like. And it serves that person, me being a right bitch at that time, because because they were doing something that was totally against our values. But in saying that, how do we grow? How do we grow in ourselves? Is by ironing, sharpening iron. I would have loved it that that person had come back to me with a sword. It would have been wonderful. Bring on the challenge, because Warren and I certainly bring out our swords together, and I tremble for those who come in between us, because they get caught up in it as well. And but again, that's about our humanity, isn't it? That we're all kinds of sort of, you know, we have the beauty, we have the ugliness. We're both gorgeous and we're ugly at the same time, or whichever we create it to be. And so, you know, being real is it's priceless. It's precious.
It's freeing. It's freeing. It's liberating, right? You're not carrying the weight of hiding shit, you know, anymore.
Yes,
you know?
Exactly. And when there's whirlwinds happening around us, well, it's wonderful, you know. Sometimes when we come together, there's a huge whirlwind between the people in the sessions, and that's cool as well, because then it helps you to reflect where you're at. You know, when you see the whole people are in a whirlwind, well, where's that in you, and why are you seeing it? And so it's time to reflect in yourself.
Yeah, the seer, the seeing, and the seeing.
The thing is too, I trust someone, Grace, who speaks their truth to me. Like someone, I remember a client came to me about, I don't know if you remember, a few months ago, 2 months ago, a client after one of the events came, and he just basically, his wife had been liaising with me about coming on board with us as a client, and then I replied, and then what happened was Grace had the initial meeting, and I totally forgot to tell Grace about what the client I talked about. Now, the client straight away messaged me and said, look, I wouldn't mind talking to you because I was really disappointed with my experience at the front end with your company, with what happened with Grace, which is really annoying because I really wanted to work with you guys, but it was just a complete disconnect. I mean, I had this great experience talking to you, go to Grace and get the exact opposite. Now, I immediately emailed him straight back, and I just said, there's only one person responsible for that fiasco, and that's me, because I said, you went to see Grace, and I completely forgot to tell Grace what we talked about. So I said, yes, I don't blame you for being that. How about we get in the call? So we got in the call, and he goes, look, I'm really sorry, you know, I didn't mean to, you know, come across aggressive. I said, no, I said, I actually like people like you because you're easy to deal with. I said, otherwise you would have gone away, spoken behind our back in wins, not seen us again. So I said, it's given me a slap up my ass for not following our company system. I should not have been going behind the team's back and having this discussion with you, or if I did, it should have been communicated to my team. So I said, thank you for giving me a slap up the ass. And the client actually said, you know what, I like your honesty. I said, well, I like yours too. It makes it easy. And so, of course, I have a great relationship with this client now. So truthful people are always easy to deal with. And I'd rather someone tell me the ugly truth. And like Grace said, you know, someone who says, like, I'll just say to Grace sometimes, like she'll go off at me and I'll say, you're being totally unreasonable. You can fuck off. And I'll talk to you when you decide to behave like a normal individual. rather than carry on like some psycho. And then she'll get so upset at me. This is how we used to be. And then about a day later, she'll come and go, okay, let's have a chat. And then we'd just be back to normal as if nothing happened. And remember those days, Grace?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's just better to be truthful with yourself and with governments and things like that, with everything, just to be truthful with the people around you and with yourself. So when Chris asked a good question about fearing God, look, I don't see it as like some heavenly guy with a beard in the sky waiting there to anal swab you like Dr. Bill. I more see God the Father and God the Divine Mother as his consequences. In the same way, like my sons know that I gave them a lot of freedom, like far more than most. When everyone else was trying to get me to push them into school and that, I left them alone. But they knew that there's a certain boundary where if they pushed me, I'd lose my shit. And they always said to me, you know, we kind of got nervous when we saw you start to lose your shit because we knew what that would mean. And I remember one time saying to Josiah, who I gave him a lot of freedom, but he just decided to openly defy me and break his agreement to me around football training. And you probably remember this, Grace. I said to him one day, well, I said, I can't really force you to go to training, but I said, seeing as you're dishonoring all the agreements that we've made and you're being a dick with me, I'm going to be a dick with you. And I said, I have the right to be a dick with you too. I said, you rely on me financially because you're 10 years old. So I said, I'm just going to take off your iPad off you. I'm going to take away all your toys, everything from you. And I'm going to be the most horrible father to you for the next little while. And just, you're going to be living a boring life where you can't watch TV, you can't read any iPads. And I'll be completely unreasonable with you like you've been with me. Now I said, I'll give you 24 hours to think about it. And I'll be reasonable with you. If there's a good reason you don't like football and you want to do a different sport, I'm happy to talk about it. But just defying me and refusing to talk to me about it, I'm going to do the same with you. And about 12 hours later, he comes, throws his arms around me, and he kind of laughed, goes, yep, okay, let's talk. And we had a chat and we sorted it out. So that's how I see God more, like God kind of laughs. But if I start going off my path, if tomorrow I stop running this work, if I stopped doing anything and I started going out and spending all my time at the brothel, making anything I could find, and going down the pub and getting drunk every single week and spending all my money and everything, I think after a while there'd be some consequences in my life. And I think we all would agree that would be a fair point.
The anal swabbing's getting a good run over in the chat here. You stirred the pot, Dr. Bill. The glorious Dr. Bill, here to save us all.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Sheldon's the man. It's so true. Empower yourself. Otherwise, someone else will do it. And it's interesting. Sharon says that she sickens or bores herself with the self-analysis. The fact is, Sharon, we are human, and that's part of what we do.
Yeah, I get sick of it every day. But I'm having a spiritual being having a 3D experience. So
it goes to me, yeah.
Yep. Nose to the grindstone again.
Yep.
Shoulder to the wheel.
The point is to get off the wheel, get off the hamster wheel. Hey, Steve.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
I think
So
everyone
true.
here, if everyone here got an astrological reading.
Anyway, wow.
Yeah, look at your past lives, you probably would all find that all of us have had a pretty naughty lifetime or two before this one. So we're obviously here to redeem something, and we may as well do it so we don't have to keep coming back and reliving this again. That's how I see it, actually. Otherwise, you will come back and you'll live it all over again and worse.
I think each one of us here have met previously, and here we are gathered together again to see what we can sort out.
Yeah,
Right, there's a very good chance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
coincidences.
Maybe, Steve, many of you guys got roped into my swindle in my last lifetimes. At this point, I'm teaching the right things rather than getting you caught up in my swindle.
Yeah, maybe.
And I must have done something so bad to Steve because he keeps stalking my dream.
well, when you said that, Warren, my anus just twitched, so it must have been true, right?
Oh, no.
Maybe that's time to end it on that note.
Oh, I'm getting too much. I think it's time to end. Okay.
Yeah. In that note, let the dust settle. So thank you so much, everyone, for the support. And again, it's not about the Warren or Dr. Bill or Steve or myself or anyone here. It's about it's about us, isn't it? It's about us as a group together. Let's see what we can make happen. Let's create our own system, a sovereign system, and create our everything.
Awesome.
How we see it together. So, all right. You have a great rest of the afternoon, evening, whatever you're doing, guys.
All right. See you guys.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.